Think of the respect.
No, no, no.
Think of the Tony.
Hello, all you theater lovers, both out and proud and on the DL, and welcome back to Broadway Breakdown, a podcast discussing the history and legacy of American theater's most exclusive address, Broadway. I am your host, Matt Koplik, the least famous and most opinionated of all the Broadway podcast hosts, and we are continuing our Tony series until we get to that fateful June 16th, and then we can all take a breather, take a stretch, and get back to business as usual on the breakdown. But until then, I am joined by a wonderful guest. He is an employee. I didn't know where that sentence was going to go, so I have to do an employee of Goldderby. He's a former collegiate friend of mine. We both went to the Emerson College. Please welcome Sam Eckmann. Hi, Sam.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing today?
Oh, exhausted and fabulous.
That sounds about right. I started that intro looking at you dead in the face, and then I had to turn away because I've made people not uncomfortable, but I don't know. It's like when you watch that episode of Parks and Rec and they're on the radio show and they're doing like all of their banter, but it's like clearly scripted, but they are doing it memorized, and Leslie's just like, what the fuck's going on right now? That's how I feel every time I do the intro to this with people who are just watching me do it memorized, and like, well, that was a moment. And so, yeah, that's all she wrote.
It was wonderful.
Thank you so much. Sam, we are talking about Tony predictions, but not necessarily our own. You might give some of yours. I will not be disclosing any of mine today. I still got like 4 more weeks to go of this podcast, so I need to hold off on those for a second, give people something to hold on to. But more importantly, the art of predicting, because that is, some might say, part of your job.
Yeah, a little bit of my niche, I guess.
Yeah. Well, so for those who are not in the know, for as I call them, the uncultured fucks, what exactly is Goldderby?
Goldderby is a site with people with lots of opinions. And if you're a person with lots of opinions, you can come voice them on our site. We're an entertainment site that covers all awards races in the entertainment industry. And I also help them with Oscars and Emmys and everything. But my main little alcove here is the Tony Awards and Broadway. And you can create your own profile, an account on Goldderby, and head to our prediction center and log in your own predictions of who you think will be nominated and then win on these various awards, and see if you can outscore people like me, the editors. And we also have a lot of like experts on the site, people, critics and other journalists who cover the Tonys and Oscars and Emmys for various publications. So there are prizes if you like winning prizes and you think you can outscore me and be number one on the predictions. You can do that and maybe win a prize. And we have the great privilege of speaking to a lot of artists along the way. I get to talk to a lot of people I really admire and a lot of great theater makers across all different disciplines on the road to these awards. So it's a good gig.
That's a great gig. I don't get to talk to a lot of people that I admire, but a lot of people I admire get to talk to me.
Well, there you go. We're reverse.
Sorry, verse? Oh, reverse.
That too, but sure.
Sure, that. But how would you say your track record tends to be on the Goldderby for Tonys?
I mean, like, not to toot my own horn, but last time I tied for first place. So, I mean, it's pretty good. This season, however, is kind of a train wreck.
Yeah.
This is the hardest season to predict that I've ever covered. Absolutely. So I did respectable for how difficult it was for nominations, but
well, something that Goldderby doesn't take into account with Tonys, because I feel like the format is restricted to Oscar format, which is, they never go beyond the number of nominees in a category at the Oscars, whereas the Tonys, now that can absolutely happen. So with predictions, you don't get to take into account, like, well, what if there are 7 featured actress in a musical nominees?
Sure, but if you got 5 of the 7, then you would still be the best out of everyone on the site. So there is still the, you can still kind of ace your predictions that way.
Were there any nominees this year that took you by surprise? It doesn't have to be good or bad, just like, oh, didn't expect that to happen.
Oh, yeah, a lot. I would say both Joshua Boone and Sky Lakota Lynch for The Outsiders. I just thought there were so many featured men in The Outsiders that sometimes when there's a huge ensemble of people and it becomes difficult for people to kind of unite around a single person to get them through.
Sure.
So I did not see those coming, but congratulations to those men.
to get two nonetheless,
Yeah.
because I feel like that's sort of the thing with Suffs is Nikki M. James has now sort of had to become the spokeswoman for that whole ensemble, because it's like, who do you pick in that show?
I know.
Yeah. I don't know if I predicted Joshua Boone at first. I know when I came out of the show, I was like, I feel like he and Brent Comer are doing like the supporting actor bids that I would nominate. And I'm glad that both he and Sky are nominated, but justice for Brent, who I just thought was so good.
He was great.
And so daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the, not that you want to take a nomination away from anyone, but our lovely Paul Alexander Nolan was, of course, left out of that category. I don't know what he has to do.
I've been saying
what does he
this.
have to do,
Sam? I've been saying this. What does the man have to do? I don't know. I'm going to actually be at, so this comes out on Thursday. We're recording this on Tuesday. By the time this comes out, I will be at the Water for Elephants cast album. They're calling it a listening party, but I think it's just like a release party, or I don't know. Are we literally just all going to sit around, drink, and listen to the album?
Yeah, there'll be free food and snacks.
No, there's absolutely free food and snacks. But last time I went to one of these, it was the Into the Woods cast album release. So they like played it over the speakers, but we were on a rooftop bar, and it was an excuse for Sarah Bareilles to get drunk with me. That's all it was. And Annie Golden to just sign my album without me asking. But I do wonder if Paul and I will have to have a moment, and I'll be like, that we all know, and you should know.
I hope he didn't listen to any of my coverage, because if he did, I probably got his hopes up, because I had him as like a sure thing for a nomination.
I had him, Daniel, and Steven as the three sure things of that category.
Same.
And yeah, I just don't know why the Tonys have decided. Maybe because he's good old reliable Paul. He brings it to you every ball, and I'm like, yeah. So award the fucker.
Why are you gagging so?
Why are you gagging so? I'm like, award the fucker. Why not? But I just don't know anymore. I'm more nervous because I know for a fact now that a few people have sent him my review of Water for Elephants, which is just a love letter to him. And I don't want him to feel weird when he hears my name, because
I'll have security.
I am not Martha from Baby Reindeer. I am totally normal. I can keep myself composed. There are other people in this world that I would not be composed around for different reasons. Paul, I will be totally fine. But yeah, unfortunately, he did not get that nomination. Any other big ones for you besides feature actor? Printer going right now.
Yeah.
We're in the office of my mother's apartment, and even though she knows we're recording, she is 69, and she tends to forget these things.
I'm trying to think of ones that really surprised me. I feel like there were people I was really happy for that weren't sure things, that like Betsy Adam for Prayer for the French Republic.
Sure.
I was really happy she got in.
Same.
A lot of people weren't, I think maybe discounted her because she's not the famous person in a category of super, super famous women. But I was happy she got in, and really happy for Dorian Harewood because I was worried that the shift of him and Miriam Plunkett to lead might hurt them, just because they're not the ones in the Notebook who do the most singing.
Yes.
Which is always kind of a gamble, but I thought he was fantastic. So I'm happy he finally is in there.
Same. Both of them. I was so thrilled to see their nominations. Anyone who sees the Notebook, you can't deny that they are not like the center of that production.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the thing is, you and I have both seen everything this season. We've seen everything that's nominated. So there's a lot of stuff that people will talk about in their predictions just based off of, word of mouth or reading on message boards without actually having seen the thing, or they think about it like objectively. And sometimes it's just a matter of like once you're in that theater and watching the thing, your whole attitude about the race changes because of what's right in front of you. And that's something that I learned with my predictions this year, because there's so many things that on paper I was like, let's go, motherfucker, this is going to be it. And then I went and saw it and went, maybe not. Or things that I slept on and then saw and I was like, oh, look who came to the party. And that's been fun this year, is sort of the surprises, both negative and positive for me. Yeah.
That selfishly is kind of like why I love what I do. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do so well on these. I'm going to scoop this person up with 100-1 odds in Goldderby's Prediction Center, because it really is like a different ball game. Like, people sleep on folks just because they're not as well known, and Broadway is a localized industry. You have to be here to see the things. And that's kind of what I love about what I do is kind of like broadening that conversation out to people who are theater fans but maybe are not here to see all the shows.
Oh, I love to watch once Goldderby opens up the Tony predictions tab, I start looking at all of y'all's predictions because there's people like you who like know what they're talking about and do this. And then you got people who mostly deal with film and they're a Goldderby editor and this is another prediction they could do. And you're like, oh, you just have read about Broadway. You don't actually know what any of these shows are, these people are. Not naming names, but names. But yeah, so let's like get into some of the nitty gritty here. So Sam, when you are doing these predictions, let's start with nominees and we can go into winners for a second.
Sure.
How much of yourself do you have to sort of take out of the equation? Or do you kind of just lead with your heart when in doubt?
That's a huge, I think everyone who is kind of in the awards prediction game, that's a huge component of it because art is subjective. Like it's not sports. There's not like a literal first or last place finisher. Things that might be critically derided are maybe someone's favorite thing. And, the flip side of that, something that everyone falls in love with, maybe you're just like, I don't get it. This doesn't resonate with me at all. So it's always kind of tough to take yourself out of it, but you have to because it's about figuring out what this specific group of people are going to do. I think like I first kind of started reading sites like Goldderby and other awards-based sites because I was not a sports-based person. I was a theater person.
Go Lions.
As you can see.
Yeah. Go Lions, Emerson.
Yeah, Ested 18, whatever the fuck that was. That doesn't exist. But I was like watching, the Emmys and couldn't figure out why my favorite shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer never did well and never got onto the main telecast. And because I'm like also a huge like sci-fi fantasy nerd. And so it's like, why don't these things that I think are the most life-changing pieces of art not getting any attention at these shows? And it's because like there are certain biases, there are certain things that register with these voting groups, and it's kind of like you have to take your own ideas out of it if you want to do well. You can kind of go out on a limb for people you love if you really want to, and I do that. I think especially in the nominations phase of like, just because there's so many great talented contenders, especially like in a season like this that is so crowded, that sometimes I do throw someone out there who I'm like, I'm not sure if they're really in there, but I think they deserve to be in the conversation. But when push comes to shove, it's kind of about putting yourself in the mindset of this specific group of people and what do they respond to. Totally.
And I mean, also, I remind my listeners every time to remember that the group of nominators changes every 3 years.
Right.
So who we have right now is not who, did the nominations in 2015 or even 2018, 19. And I think this cycle actually will be over next year or the year after.
I think so. Yeah.
It'll be, although I don't know if they do like a whole new overlap or if it's sort of some people come in.
I believe it's piecemeal. So everyone gets a term.
Fantastic.
And you finish out your term. Yeah.
I also know that you can be a nominator again after a certain period of time because my step-grandmother was a nominator for the 89 to 92 season, I believe. And then she was a nominator again for 2015 to 2018. And that was because her last year as a nominator, we went to the Tonys together. That was the band's visit year. And we went to the plaza afterwards, and I got a nice free lobster roll right behind Tony Kushner. He didn't have a lobster roll, but I did stand behind him as I ordered mine. That's my 5th proudest moment as a homosexual.
What's for?
We'll tell you off mic.
Oh, okay.
But
that sounds right.
Yeah. So are there certain trends though, even with different groups of nominators over the years? Are there certain trends you tend to see with nominations of the Tonys?
Yeah, I think sometimes it depends on the category you're looking at. I think also just to back up for a moment, I think one of the tricky, unique things about that nominator group, which is specific to the Tonys, and different from things like Oscars, Emmys, Grammys, is that this is a very small group of people who decide the nominations. And I usually, like, it started at 60 this year, but if you're involved with a production, you have to recuse yourself. Or if you can't see something for whatever reason, you have to recuse yourself. You have to see everything. So I think they ended up with 44 of them actually voting this year.
Yeah.
And that's a tiny pool of people when you figure the main body of voters to decide the winners is over 800. It's you're appealing to 44 people. So when you have votes like this, the smaller the group of people deciding this list, the more chance there is for kind of singular individual tastes to come into the fold. I think in years past, we've seen what we often call like the snob appeal feel a little bit more pronounced, things that might appeal to the quote unquote old guard and not necessarily younger folks. But in recent years, they've really made a concerted effort to diversify the nominators in terms of age. Like there are more people like in their 30s, which there really weren't before in that group, and race and ethnicity. So there are, I think, more diverse perspectives in the mix. So they, like Michael R. Jackson has been a nominator. He's going to have a different opinion and different tastes probably than, an 80-year-old artistic director of a regional theater somewhere, right? So that's kind of the great thing about it, is that they have tried to diversify it and they have seen everything. So it really is the most fair it can be in a way. There's no like, oh, this didn't get in because no one saw it.
Yeah.
They've all seen everything. But that makes it super difficult to go in there and think, well, what are these 44 people going to say?
Yeah.
Because it could just be like a divisive show, like Lempicka, I think, was pretty divisive this year. People fell into kind of love it or hate it camps. If you have enough love it's in a group of 44, you could totally get in. And if you have enough hate it's, then it can totally not.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
And things have just gotten weirder in that respect in terms of perspective, taste and whatnot, because there are shows that maybe don't do well critically that end up getting a lot of Tony nominations love, but then totally blank when the voting happens. There have been a lot of musicals where they get double-digit nominations and get 0 or 1 wins. Mean Girls, Scottsboro Boys, trying to think of other ones. SpongeBob, Paradise Square, and I think we can see that's something that people always feel like need to kind of prepare themselves for, no matter what. They see the tally of nominations and they go, oh, clearly this is the front runner. I'm like, well, as you said,
not necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. now we got to go to a pool that's 20 times the size, and not everyone's going to agree. I've looked at past years, and I've talked about this before. I mean, I know in the Aida episode, we talked about how that was a year where specifically, because there's always this feeling that, nominators are making pointed claims with their nominations of ignoring things and voting for others. And that's not always true, but there are some years where that's absolutely true. And the year of Aida, it was very clear that they all tried very hard to make sure it didn't get a Best Musical nomination, because they were pretty sure if it did get the nomination, it would win. And so they got 5 nominations, score, actress, everything but musical, and they won 4 out of the 5. So yes, if they had been nominated for musical, they probably would have won.
Right.
And Wild Party getting 6 or 7 and totally blanking. And I always just like to bring those up to people. I find it fun. I find those fun facts. But also it's interesting because I feel like with the Oscars, it's kind of the reverse. Usually the one that comes in with the big nominations tends to be the big heavy hitter on Oscar night, with very few exceptions.
Well, that's changing too, though, I think, in recent years. I like, to the point of people's ballots and are they trying to say something, I really think it's true across multiple types of awards, that it really comes down to passion. In many of these, like I'm a voter with the newly formed Dorian Awards from Gallica, which is the Society of LGBTQ Journalists. And like we only have 3 slots when you fill out a ballot. You don't get a full slate of 5. And that's how a lot of these awards work. So if I only have 3 people per category, I have to really think about like what resonated with me. What do I really love? Because I don't even get to list everyone that I loved in a season. And so sometimes like things shake out in weird ways because math. I can't tell you why because math, because I have not taken a math class since I was a junior in high school because I have a BFA in acting, so that's not my forte.
I have a BFA in musical theater, so I'm barely better than you. I can count up to 8.
I can count to 8. I still took voice lessons, so she did 8s. She did dancing and singing.
Oh,
so
she did 8s out of 10s?
Yeah, 8s out of 10s.
In college, you heard it first. Sam Eckmann did nothing but 8s. If you were below an 8, Sam Eckmann did not talk to you, did not look at you, didn't want to have anything to do with you. Only 8s only. 8s across the board.
Is it true? Maybe.
So, on that note, what is when it comes to Tony voting, let's say, I've talked about this myself, but I want to hear from a professional. There are obviously some myths about, how voting works and what shows tend to win or what shows will get certain kinds of votes based off of Tony voting communities. Do you know what I mean when I say some of this stuff?
Like what one? What
what's going to get the road vote?
Oh God, the road vote! I never want to hear about the road vote again.
I think that's like the ultimate myth.
It is. Well, it has merit of like years and years ago.
Yeah.
Because so for those who don't know, the road vote is referring to road presenters who are, maybe going to present things on tour in regional houses, which used to form a much more sizable portion of the voting body. But now I think they account for like maybe 12% of the voting body. It has shrunken as their influence has shrunken as the Tony pool has expanded in numbers. And the theory was always like, oh, well, the road voters will just want something that middle America eats up, that they can advertise really well and easily. That'll make them a bunch of money, which I get. But one, people tend to not vote as big blocks like that. And 2, it's been proven wrong time and time again because, like, 1, they see everything. Once it's nominated, they see all the nominees. And if I was a presenter in a, touring house somewhere in America, I know I can sell Beautiful, the Carole King musical. I don't know that I could sell Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder unless it has the stamp of Best Musical on it.
1000%.
Because for most of America who is not listening to this podcast, who's not keyed into the theater world and Broadway, their only kind of like knowledge of things that are good are like, it won the Tony for Best Musical. So that actually does mean something on the road in terms of national tours. So like, why wouldn't you want 2 things in your season that can make money? Because like without it doesn't matter. Like Beautiful, the Carole King musical, like all these like mass appeal, like MJ, those have appeal whether or not it wins Best Musical. Other kind of things that are more indie, like a lot of recent winners, The Band's Visit and stuff like that, there's no way that would have been able to sell unless it does have that stamp of approval.
1000%.
But the road vote is not a thing, so don't take that joke
well,
out.
what happened was it was the year of Avenue Q that like really this myth just kind of stayed in everyone's brain forever because also message board culture was really kind of crystallizing at this point. And when Avenue Q beat Wicked, there were just millions of articles like, how did this happen? And ultimately a lot of things happened. And if you want to know more, y'all, you can listen to the Avenue Q episode with Sam Seamock, former Emersonian. And we talked about this. Avenue Q ran a very intense campaign. One that they actually, because of Avenue Q's campaign, Tony campaigning rules have now changed because of what they did.
It was really the first actual campaign like that was done, really.
Because campaigning used to be a lot more in the room. It was networking, because with the difference between Broadway and Hollywood is all the events happen in 6 blocks of each other, and it's not every day, it's every couple of days, and everyone's always together, and you can do a lot better networking that way. So any parties, any award shows, anything like that. but the first one I can really think of that really kind of did a campaign, but it was a light one, with Secret Garden, where they just said, like, vote with your heart. That's all they did. There's like, vote with your heart.
That was the Avenue Q one.
I know Avenue Q stole it.
Oh, right.
Or repurposed it, I should say, because Avenue Q took it and then ran with it, because then they wrote a song and they did all these other things, and they did a lot of stuff. But what everyone focused in on was, after they won, they signed a deal to do a sit-down production in Vegas, which pissed off all the road voters at the Tonys, because supposedly many of them voted for Avenue Q on the assumption that it was going to tour. They did eventually tour, just not immediately. And so from there, the idea of the road voter having influence respawned and has just stuck ever since. But also, if the road voters truly were the ones that pushed Avenue Q over the edge, it was by a small enough margin that it had an effect. Not like, oh, they overwhelmingly pushed Avenue Q to the forefront. It was most likely that Avenue Q was always going to win score and book. And then with, a couple dozen votes, maybe 100 votes, beat Wicked in the end, which is all, I mean, you just need one to win.
Well, this also brings up another point that we should discuss, because in addition to this road vote thing, one aspect that sets the Tonys apart from any other award, even other theater awards, is that it's not only deciding what people think is the best, but there is a advertising and monetary aspect of this, because as we said, like, it's a localized industry. You have to be here to see the shows. The Tony Awards become the biggest advertising and marketing opportunity that any Broadway show has. Getting a win in front of those millions of people, and even with viewership down from like the heyday of network television, it still is a huge event that draws a bunch of eyeballs, that is then replayed on social media, that is replayed on news stations as they discuss winners. So it has a huge effect. Or having a great performance, production number on the Tonys has a huge effect. And I think sometimes, because Best Musical is the category that really is the one that boosts the box office reliably. Other ones, maybe or maybe not, but Best Musical reliably will give you a boost in ticket sales, at least for a time. And I think there is, again, a thought sometimes of, well, like that Wicked year, Wicked is doing great. It defied the critics. It's critic proof. And it's going to be a box office hit no matter what. Like, it just is a hit, has captured zeitgeist. Avenue Q is a show that we really like, that maybe needs this stamp of approval in order to have the second kind of phase of its life in order to survive. And I think we've seen that this year, even with, it was such a packed year for musicals. Two of the best, if, critics aren't, Tony voters, except for a small group of like maybe a dozen or so. But the two of the biggest critically acclaimed ones were Days of Wine and Roses and Here Lies Love, both of which were closed. There were a lot of closed shows they could have taken from, and they only went with things, shows that were still open. And I think some of that, I will never know because they don't release the ballots, and I haven't personally interviewed and picked the brain of all 44 nominators, but I think somewhere there they do have to think like, well, if I give this spring show a Best Musical nomination, it still really needs it. Whereas Here Lies Love is gone, and it would be really nice for them to get one, but these spring shows really need this boost.
I think also this has been a year. We're talking about musicals right now. We'll get into plays as well, but with musicals, I feel like there aren't a lot that have a large amount of passion behind them. Hell's Kitchen took me by surprise with all of its nominations this year, but I also think that just means it's that much more likely to lose as many nominations as it got. But who knows? That's something we'll talk about later down this episode. But even if critics loved Days of Wine and Roses, did all the nominators love Days of Wine and Roses? Because they nominated Kelly and they nominated Brian and they nominated the score, not book, not orchestrations. And those all seem so flippant, but they all do matter in some way. I mentioned this on a past predictions episode many weeks ago. There has never been a Best Musical winner to not be nominated for Best Book if it was eligible.
It's an important category.
It is a very important category. You can win without getting nominated for Director. That has only happened, I think, twice. you can win and not win director, but getting nominated for book and director is very, very, very helpful. And it also helps if you have at least one acting nomination in there as well, which the only of the 5 musical nominees, Illinois doesn't have book or director. I feel like there's another one.
The other ones are all Suff's, The Outsiders, Hell's Kitchen, Water for Elephants. They all have director
and book.
Yes. Water for Elephants does not have an acting nomination
or a score nomination
because they got rid of Paul Alexander Nolan.
And
you'll have a word with them.
I will have a word with all of them. I will go up to Becky Ann Baker and I will say, "Mama, what are we doing?" I will go up to Michael R. Jackson and I will say, first of all, cut 20 minutes out of teeth. Second of all, what are we doing? Continuing, but I don't know how we got here. Oh, the other thing is, it's always tricky to say this and not sound like I'm having a tinfoil hat on my head, but I do feel like sometimes with voters, especially with musicals, and we're sort of in this yet again a time where everyone's having arguments about what kind of musicals should we be producing and blah blah blah. As you said earlier, more of the smaller musicals have won Best Musical in the last 20 years, and the few that weren't really the small ones that are maybe larger were ones that were very critically acclaimed and big hits. So something like Hamilton, Dear Evan Hansen, yes, they were, if Evan Hansen wasn't financially the success that it was when it went into the Tonys that night, it would have been considered one of those small, weird musicals that you'd want to see win. Hamilton, big musical, but again, reviews you can't buy, and a Pulitzer, and just became a movement. You can't deny that. And I feel like sometimes there are mentalities of when voting, what message are we sending the community of like, give us more of this? And the only reason I say that is because the year of Band's Visit very much felt like that. I was in the room that night, and it was crazy because it was Radio City Music Hall, so half the room is filled with fans who could buy a ticket. So the top 3 mezzanines are shouting every time SpongeBob or Mean Girls has a nomination announced. And every time Band's Visit had a nomination announced, it was tepid applause. And then Band's Visit kept winning. And it was sort of voters going like, we don't care how many followers you have on social media. If you give us a good musical like Band's Visit, we're going to vote for you. And we would like more of that. And I don't know how often that happens, but that definitely felt like a pointed statement from voters that year.
I do think that people kind of think about the canon of Best Musical winners, because I don't know, think about when you're a high school kid. I know for me, that was kind of the entry point in a lot of ways into what's happening on Broadway and the musicals that really stick out to people who are not, again, here in New York, who are just theater fans from afar. It is often, the Best Musical winners that they pay attention to. And we were talking about important categories like Best Book. I think that's why Best Score is also, this is my thing I talk about every year when people say that certain shows that are jukebox musicals are going to win, and it's going to be tested pretty heavily this year. But Best Score has been all important recently, because until Moulin Rouge, when they had to award a jukebox musical, nothing of that sort had won since Jersey Boys, because after Jersey Boys, there was a flood of these musicals, and they thought, well, when we look back through Best Musical winners, is it going to just be rock music and pop music? We should be uplifting our own musical theater composers and really championing them, and this is the space to do it. And I won't say specific names because, I'll get into trouble, but I was told very firmly by some show years ago from a person who I think is no longer in the industry because they're rude and they probably shouldn't be, but they were like, we don't need your help winning Best Musical, when I simply, asked for a ticket or, access for an article, and they did not. And I knew they weren't going to win right away because it was I know that they're going to champion this other show that is from theater royalty. It just I think is more appealing to people to do that. That's why this season is going to be really interesting, because so many people have either Hell's Kitchen or Illinois out front to win. And I'm not sure about it, because it's if they have the opportunity to reward something with an original score, I just it's hard to not see them taking it. That's been the trend for years now.
Absolutely. And so I was thinking about this so also full disclosure, guys, Sam and I have run into each other about 7,000 times in the last 3 weeks at shows. We ran into each other at Cabaret, at Mother Play. We didn't see each other at Illinois, but we were at the same performance of Illinois.
Weren't we at Hell's Kitchen together too?
Maybe.
I think we didn't see you were in the mezzanine.
I was it was the Wednesday matinee of Hell's Kitchen. Malaya was out, but I'd seen Malaya do it off Broadway.
Oh no, I didn't. I saw Malaya.
Okay, so different matinee. I saw Hell's Kitchen for the matinee that was supposed to be Cabaret that they canceled, and I got a mezzanine seat for Hell's Kitchen, and they announced Malaya was out, and I went, I'll stick around. I saw her do it off Broadway. I doubt that the performance has changed much, because nothing about that show changed from off Broadway. But I digress. We were talking about this, I think, at Cabaret. No, we were talking about this at New York City Gay Men's Chorus After Party, about the number of jukebox musicals or musicals without original scores that have won Best Musical. I mean, in the last 50 years, let alone the last 10. And Moulin Rouge, they had to. Jersey Boys, critical financial hit, also a genuinely good musical. Its only real competition was Drowsy Chaperone, which won a bunch of other awards. So it was sort of a nice
I think it was
divide.
Close that year.
Yeah, it was very close. The next one, so that was we're talking 2020, then 2006, 2000 with Contact, which I don't even think you can call a jukebox musical. That got shit for other reasons.
A dancicle.
It was the dancicle, exactly.
And just sort of Illinois this year.
Exactly. But also, of the 4 nominees, that was the one that was just the clear winner, because you had Wild Party, which I love, but was so divided and honestly kind of hated by critics. It was only really liked by the art actor community. It wasn't really liked by anyone else. You had Swing, which no one took seriously, and then you had James Joyce's The Dead, which everyone was like, we'll give it a book win, but god damn it, I slept through that show. After the year before that is Fosse, which I also don't consider a jukebox musical. That is a review like Jerome Robbins' Broadway or Amos Behave, and that is musical theater. And then Crazy for You, which also I don't really consider a jukebox musical. It's Gershwin and was more of a revisal of an old musical made new. So outside of that, we don't really have jukebox musical winners, and we actually have quite a few jukebox musicals nominated throughout the years. So I hear you, and I think that's absolutely accurate. I think what could get Hell's Kitchen the win is just that we're very scattered all over in terms of who's got momentum. But I right now kind of have Suffs as that one to beat because of, quote unquote, the importance of the message, which isn't me undermining its importance, but rather that's something that people always like to talk about. It's so important right now. I'm like, sure. Yeah, I mean, it is. And then it is an original score. It is directed by Lee Zimmerman, who has a nomination this year. She was nominated for Violet. Shayna has always been this kind of beloved, well-kept secret in the community, and now she's kind of getting her due with the writing. A lot of women in that show are very well liked. I think there's a lot going for that. I would love it if Illinois or The Outsiders won, just because Illinois is my favorite of those 5, and Outsiders made me very horny. But I can't deny Suffs, but we'll see. Sorry, let me check the time. Okay, but we're gonna continue with some more stuff. But before we do any of that, we gotta take a quick break.
Billy, I beg to differ with you. How do you mean? You're the top. Yeah. You're an arrow collar. You're the top. You're a Coolidge dollar. You're the nimble tread of the feet of Fred.
And we back. One thing I wanted to bring up with you, Sam, and then we'll actually get into some of your predictions and how you kind of came to that. Another myth that I've mentioned a lot that people think about with the Tonys, because they compare it to the Oscars this way, and they're very, very different, is quote unquote precursor awards with the Tonys. With Oscars, people go, well, there's SAG and there's DGA and PGA and Golden Globes. Golden Globes don't actually influence voting on Oscars so much as it can kind of get people on the bandwagon with press and, Ryan Gosling gave a great speech. We remember how much we love him. SAG, DGA, PGA, WGA, those are guilds that vote for those categories at the Oscars. Tonys don't have that.
Yeah, precursor is not really a word with any of the other theater awards given out. So precursors, like you mentioned with SAG or DGA, those guild awards they have crossover voters. So that's why we refer to them as precursors. And something like the Golden Globes, even though they don't have any Oscar voters in their ranks, or actually they had one for a while. There's one single person who is a Hollywood Foreign Press voter. But it's a huge, big televised event. And so because, I mean, Oscar season is a whole different thing because there are so many months and months of different awards leading up to it, which, it might be heresy in my field, but I could deal with less because sometimes it makes things not as exciting or surprising on Oscar night. But you the public gets to see and voters get to see someone get up on a big televised ceremony and make a speech. And then you kind of go, oh yeah, that feels really right. I'm going to vote for this person. Or no, they miffed that. Or it doesn't feel right to have this person win the category. Yeah. So we're going to go in another direction. So they can influence that way. The theater world is not like that. We don't have, just speaking for the Dorian Awards, which I'm a part of, I think we have 2 people who are Tony voters in our ranks, just 2, but not nominators. So they're not nominees aren't going to do anything. There's not really a big crossover. And the New York Drama Critics Circle, some of them are grandfathered in as Tony voters, again, not nominators, but there's no real opportunity for crossover. And there's always people who get in left and right. I'm just thinking of, because I just had a conversation with her, which you can watch soon on Goldderby, but Leslie Rodriguez-Kritzer got Drama Desk, Drama League, and Outer Critics nominations for Beetlejuice, missed at the Tonys. Same thing that same year happened with Bonnie Milligan for Head Over Heels and missed at the Tonys. So there's not really a huge correlation. You can kind of get some trends from people. You can, if something is uniformly popping up, unless it is those 2 things two women I just mentioned, sometimes it can seem like a good bet. It's really a show or a person or something that's resonating across the board, but they don't really. The Tonys will go their own way. Again, it's 44 people deciding these nominations.
Yeah. So I talked about this last year because I got to go to both the Drama Desk Awards, which all it was just everyone sitting at Sardi's and going up and making their speech, and Manny Patinkin and his wife going over by an hour. And then Drama League, which the best thing I'll say about that was the food was good. But in both situations, Stephen McKinley Henderson had done Between Riverside and Crazy. He was nominated to the Drama League for Distinguished Performance. I think he'd already won the Drama Desk for the off-Broadway production. So he came to the Drama Desk because I think he got an honorary award. And in both cases, the room went absolutely wild for him. He got louder applause than Jessica Chastain, Jodie Comer, Sean Hayes, anyone. To the point where at the Drama Leagues, when he got up, because it was the dais where everyone has to get up and say a quick thing, he stood up and it was a minute before he could talk because people wouldn't let him open his mouth. They were just too excited for him. And I remember thinking oh shit, he might win. And it did not translate at all. That was also the Drama Leagues where Annalee Ashford won Distinguished Performance for Sweeney Todd, which made everyone go, oh, well, she's going to win now, not Vicky for Kimberly Akimbo. And I was like, first of all, very rarely has the Distinguished Performance Award of the Drama Leagues gone on to win, because the year before Annalee, it was Sutton for Music Man. That has become more of an award of, we like you, we like your career. This award isn't necessarily for your performance so much as you gave a good performance this year after giving many good ones. Here you go, we like you, give a speech. But I got caught up in the room both of those times, and I forgot my own rule that these aren't actual precursors. And I have to remember that as we continue onwards towards June 16th.
Yeah, and it's a room like the Drama League is a group of people who are really passionate theater people, right? Who are here in New York. And I love Steven. He's a amazing creature of the theater. He is such a, it makes total sense that he would get that recognition and that reception there. But I also predicted Sean Hayes that year because he was just playing, he checked off every box to win.
That's the thing. Sometimes,
actor,
sometimes the obvious winner, because it's so obvious, you want to be more interested than that. This year with Oppenheimer, I kept being well, what if it's not Robert Downey Jr.? What if it's not Cillian Murphy? But the answer was just staring me dead in the face. And I think as we were starting to watch the telecast, I just kept checking off Oppenheimer for my predictions and eventually being right. But yeah, sometimes the obvious winner is just right there, and you gotta acknowledge that enough people are going to go with a solid choice, but an obvious one, Anyhow.
Yeah.
So on that note, Sam Eckmann, let's talk about your mentality with this season as you had to get into the predictions of it all. throw a category my way. Talk to me about sort of how your brain has been working about it.
Oh, God. Well, the one we mentioned before the break that is still keeping me up is Best Musical.
Sure.
I think it's one of the most confusing ones. It's the hardest year to predict this category ever, I would say. I've had Suffs out there, I think, since the beginning. And I've maybe dropped it a few times into like second or third place, but I just keep thinking, like, can a danceicle like Illinois really take it? Can a jukebox musical with Alicia Keys songs like Hell's Kitchen really take it when they have kind of rejected those things so much recently?
Yeah.
And Suffs is just such it works on multiple levels. It has something that feels very topical and relevant. It has the opportunity to honor Shayna, who is kind of, this maybe auteur isn't the right word, but is kind of this like new force in musical theater and in Broadway right now. And because she's done the score and the book and stars in it, it's it really feels like not only awarding Best Musical, but also awarding a figure that they really love. And it just is such a complete body of original music, which I keep coming back to as like the most important thing. I could see it losing score. I think I can't imagine it losing book, to be honest.
This has been a bad year for books, in my opinion, and I don't think the book for Suffs is incredible. I think it's fine. What I want to give it Best Book for is it's the only nominee of the 5 that doesn't have a narrator.
Oh my God, it is the year of the narrator.
And can we put a fucking end to it? I am so over it. My dear Lord, if I had $1 for every time someone in a musical turned to the audience and spoke the subtext, I would be a billionaire. And that's just from Act 1 of Hell's Kitchen alone. Yeah, get the narrators out of here. So yeah, I think Suffs is definitely the front runner for book. I think it's between Suffs and Stereophonic for score. Which
is so crazy. We should talk about that too.
We're obviously going to get into that.
Yeah. But with Best Musical, it's just like the thing that makes me scared about Suffs is that I don't feel, scared about any of them, no matter who I put in the first position, is that I don't feel like there is a strong front runner. I don't feel like any of the 5 have really become like a zeitgeist hit the way some other like bands visit or Dear Evan Hansen, Hamilton, that they just start steamrolling and really kind of like capture the whole industry. And it's like, well, clearly this is going to run away with it. That is not happening this year. And I'm a little nervous of like Suff's kind of like campaign and marketing strategy a little bit. It feels like they're honing in on that kind of like, this is important thing. And that can kind of undo you. I feel like we've seen that at the Oscars a lot sometimes. Like people don't want to hear like, this is important. They want to know like, what does this do for me emotionally?
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone from Suffs is listening, I would like
take a different tactic,
because I feel like Suffs is such a joyous, like when that show ended, I was like, oh my God, I want to go protest. I want to go like to go be political. And like it makes you feel so alive and so joyous and really like grabs at your heart. Like all of the stuff about passing the torch, like when she is like, oh my God, now I'm the old fogey and I'm not the one with current ideas. And it's just we are watching that play out right now in real life still, and it really is so emotionally active. And I feel like that's what I think they should lean into as that angle, because just like it's important is not captivating to voters.
The show is a lot cheekier than people realize going into it, and they have a little bit of cheek to their posters outside the theater. But the show, the show itself, is not as hammering you over that. If
it doesn't feel like a history lesson, and some of the like visuals for things out in the world for that make it seem like we're diving back in history, and I'm like, it feels just more emotionally immediate than that. It doesn't feel like I'm like watching a distant history lesson.
I got a little history lesson out of it. My big thing with Suss that I've talked about as a detriment to it is I do think it's kind of pandering. The majority of audiences going into Suffs are politically on the side of Suffs, and so there are times when
so are the voters. So okay.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying, as someone who really enjoys, musicals that challenge me in my perspective of who I am as a person. I would have loved more of that mentality of Alice Paul, having just such tunnel vision about her work. Same with Jen Colella and Nikki M. James. And what I really wanted, because they kind of danced around it without actually dancing, because there's very little dance and stuff, but they danced around the idea of what I called in a past episode, the ragtime trio opener of everyone sort of dancing around each other. If I wanted Nikki, Jen, and Shayna to always just kind of be each other's antagonists the entire time, all going for the same goal in different ways and fighting each other because they think the other one's doing it wrong. And I wanted more of that, because anytime it did happen, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's fucking musical theater fight. And then when they would stop and have, spoiler alert, Hannah Cruz die of something, I was like, I don't care about this one so much. Get back to the drama.
I loved her in Hannah Cruz.
I enjoyed Hannah Cruz. I really enjoyed her in The Connector, and I enjoyed her in this. But when they had the whole thing about her dying, and I was also annoyed that Alice Paul never once was like, I told her to go out there and she said she wasn't feeling too good. Am I partially responsible? Am I the drama? They didn't have a moment of that, and I really wanted it, only because I knew Shayna would be able to sell it. It's like, Shayna, baby, what? You're the writer. Write that for yourself. You know you can do it. But alas, I don't know. We have Hell's Kitchen, Outsiders, and Water for Elephants probably doing the best financially of the five right now. I'm not surprised that Outsiders is becoming kind of a fangirly hit already, but it's also hard for voters to take a musical like Outsiders serious when its fan base is young girls. That has proven time and time again to be any musical's detriment when it's got a very young, heavily female fan base.
Yeah, I would say the biggest or most immediate comparison that pops up for me would maybe be Spring Awakening, which I was like, these boys are going to be as popular for this generation as those kids were for us.
Oh, see, I was thinking Newsies.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
I called Outsiders Violent Newsies.
That's so good.
Thank you. Because that's what it is. And I called Harmony Tuxedo Newsies. But Outsiders was a more exciting musical than Harmony, and thus and also did not have what Harmony suffered from, which is what Suffs is, as we were saying, kind of suffering from too, of the like, we're important, see us or you're problematic. Outsiders is like, come see us if you want to get pregnant without having sex, because that's what you're going to get after the Rumble. And I'm 6 weeks along and I'm very pleased with my choices. But we'll see. Part of it is, I think voters don't take a lot of, we have younger nominators and we do want to get young folks involved in theater. I don't think voters respect the tastes of young people all that much. If they did, SpongeBob would have absolutely run away with the Tonys that year, or Mean Girls.
Well, Outsiders is not that type of like property. I mean, SpongeBob I thought was an amazing musical. They really did so much with that, when it was clearly something that like some executive at Nickelodeon was like, we want to be on the Broadway.
Yeah, we want
Make
that
us a musical.
We want Broadway money.
But then the creatives really took it and made something cool out of it. But this isn't like an IP like that, and I feel like one of the things it might have going for it is that even older voters will likely have read the book. I feel like I'm actually the only person who never read the book and was not assigned this book in high school or middle school.
Why did your school hate America?
I guess
I went to the professional children's school on 60th between Amsterdam and Columbus, and we sure had to read it right after Lord of the Flies. And I remember reading both back to back.
That's like my favorite book, but
I read both those back to back, and I went, these boys are angry. What are they so angry about?
Lord of the Flies musical where someone gets smashed with a rock.
But they're like 11. First of all, don't you ever pitch me a musical starring only children, because I will throw a rock in your face.
It would be people playing children. We like to do that on Broadway.
Sure. So this is going to star all the Keenan Bolgers?
We'll star the Keenan Bolger family.
Keenan Bolger family and the Mueller family as well. And we'll just...
Celia Keenan Bolger will just come out and do a show. She'll go, yes, I am playing all the parts. And
thank you.
And then Lord of the Flies, including the musical. It'll be called Flies! The musical.
And it's just Celia Keenan Bolger on stage with nothing but sand on the abandoned set of Once on This Island, pulling a Cher in West Side Story, playing all the parts.
She'll take a rock, bash it on her own head,
yes,
and then wake up. So that's how Piggy was killed.
And they'll get nominated for Best Book because of all the narration.
Thank Celia, God. We found your next Tony Award.
We sure did, because it's not Mother Play.
I loved her in Mother Play.
Okay, well, I'm glad you did. I didn't love anything about Mother Play. I loved Celia's hat from Marvelous Mrs. Maisel that she wore when her character became a lesbian. Can you tell that I really want that show to win all the Tonys?
I can see you're a fan. Sure.
Well, that show just made me very angry because I went in so pumped for it because I love Vogel, I love Tina Landau, SpongeBob, and I love all three of those actors. And I was like, if this doesn't ruin me, I'm going to be a little miffed. And not only did it not ruin me, it wouldn't even touch me with a 10-foot pole. So musical, that's what you're going to say about musical. Well, let's get into plays for a second. Plays is actually kind of interesting because we have one play that is the mammoth movement in a way that we don't see for plays usually. That's usually reserved for the musicals, and that is Stereophonic.
There's 5 actors nominated. That's insanity. 5 actors nominated within 2 categories. That does not happen.
It's so rare. It's so rare to have 3 in one and 2 in the other. Even Hamilton didn't have 3 and 2. Oh no, they had lead actor, but I was thinking featured actress for a second. Like again, but it's reserved for musicals. Yeah,
it's really. I mean, that's going to win Best Play for sure. I can't think of. I think people really do. If Jaja's like opened in the spring instead, and we imagine a different alternate reality where Jaja's African hair braiding opened in the spring, like I don't know, maybe that could beat it. But I think Stereophonic just has really taken off in a crazy way that rarely happens for plays.
I loved Jaja's, and that's definitely my number 2 of actually no, sorry, Mary Jane's my number 2. Jaja's is now my 3rd. But if Jaja's came out in the spring, I don't know. I think that play might have seemed a little slight to voters opposite Stereophonic, which like itself isn't necessarily about giant important subjects, but the sheer size of it is something that voters can recognize as.
I think it's about something important to artists. Like it's really about like sacrificing everything just for the chance of making something great, you know?
Oh yeah.
And so I think Jaja's feels like, I don't know. It feels so like the emotions in it ring through so strongly.
Well, Jaja's is just, I found that show to be pure joy. It was just
great.
It was a celebration of joy. And then, you know, the rug being pulled out from under you at the end of, you know, you can never let your guard down because when you're these women, you're always a target. But, you know, I love the plays this year have really made me happy.
Yeah, I think there's a stellar crop of plays.
Yeah. I always assumed that Appropriate just had revival locked and loaded, but some of your contemporaries at Goldderby think that Pearly Victorious could make it happen.
I'm not predicting Pearly Victorious, but people do really still love that production. And I don't know. I think, again, recency bias, Appropriate is still open and is also insanely popular.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And also good, by the way. Everybody.
Also really good, and was so good and so popular that they transferred it to commercial production after it ran at the Hayes. So I just think Appropriate feels like it has the reviews, the performances, like everything going for it. Pearly, I've talked to a lot of people who are just in love with it. And I do still think, despite its close, that it could win an acting award, but I don't see it taking it away from Appropriate.
Do you think that actor is between Leslie and Jeremy Strong?
Yes, although I think its stronger chance for an acting trophy is actually Carrie Young.
Sure. Well, Sarah Pigeon.
And Sarah Pigeon will be in like a death battle to the finish
1,000%
for this. But I don't think it would be foolish to underestimate how much admiration people have for Carrie Young. And this is her 3rd nomination
in a row.
3rd consecutive show. People clearly love her. And I think every single time she's been on Broadway, she's shown something completely different and new, which is really cool. And I think has caught the attention of voters. And it's just a matter like this kind of like recency bias is a term we use of like something that just premiered and is still running for you to go see it is going to be fresher in your mind. And maybe the nuances of a performance or design or insert, category here might fade a little bit as time goes away. So I think it's about sometimes those details fade from your mind. So a performance you liked in the fall doesn't seem as immediate, but people are still talking about Carrie Young's performance, and it is still seared in people's minds. So I think she and Sarah Pigeon are really gonna duke it out.
Well, I think people assume Sarah Pigeon and Juliana Canfield might split the vote, and I don't think that's gonna happen. I think that Juliana Canfield's nomination is one I'm very thrilled about, and one that I was hoping could happen. I didn't think it would. So her being in there is incredible, but I feel like the three performances from Stereophonic that people talk about when they walk away are Sarah's, Eli Gelb's, and Will Brill's. So I feel like Will and Eli might split the vote for Corey Stoll to win for appropriate, but I also think Will could really kind of just take it for what is a very showy performance that he doesn't overdo, in the same way that like Cara had a very showy performance that she didn't overdo.
I think vote splitting only occurs when there's not a consensus.
Sure.
And I think in the case of Sarah Pigeon and Juliana Canfield, there is a consensus around Sarah, which is not a diss. Like, Juliana is incredible. The whole cast is incredible on the show. But I think just in terms of what type of stuff gets awards attention, Sarah checks off so many boxes and has, I think it's an ensemble piece, but if you were going to single someone out as a central figure, it would probably be her character, especially once you come back from intermission. It really solidifies on her and Tom Pasinka. So, because she's the not Stevie Nicks, because it's not about rumors and it's not about Fleetwood Mac.
Exactly. Dreamgirls is not about the Supremes.
For her not Stevie Nicks character. So I think that is not a vote split scenario. If you want to talk about close votes, I would love to see the vote tally for featured actor in a play when all is said and done, because I can guarantee you that is going to be the closest call of the night. And all 5 men, you should all prepare something to say, because I don't think it's just between like 3 people. I think literally all 5 of them have a shot at winning. I actually can't call that category. It's crazy.
You know, I will bow to you on that one. I have who I would vote for, but also...
Well, I think I have who I would vote for, but I have talked to people who are very firmly in the camp of all 5 of them.
Sure. I have spoken about this already in my rankings episode. I have been very open about how much I was so disappointed in Mother Play. I do know people who are voters. I said something kind of disparaging about the age demographic of people who liked Mother Play, but the truth is a lot of those people are voters. So I can imagine them giving votes to that play, and thus Jim Parsons could get in, or Jessica Lange. I mean, I think that much as I would love lead actress to be a 2-way race between Sarah Paulson and Rachel McAdams, I do think it is a 3-way race with
people
Jessica
are
Lange.
really responding to that play and Jessica's performance, and I think Jim Parsons checks off a lot of boxes again.
He dies of AIDS. They love that.
Well, and just beyond that too, I think people, this is going back to the divide between nominators and voters. Sometimes voters get a list of nominees and they're like, where's this thing I wanted to nominate or wanted to vote for? Like To Kill a Mockingbird, the year where it was left off Best Play, there were a lot of people pissed off because they wanted to vote for it for Best Play. And I think there are a lot of voters who have kind of been waiting to give Jim Parsons a Tony and waiting to vote for him. Like, there are people who wanted him in for bands, Boys in the Band and for The Normal Heart. This is not his first Broadway gig. He's been doing... I think it's his 5th. Yeah. It's either his 5th or his 6th. So he has a lot of fans and a lot of people who have responded to this particular performance with all 3 of those actors.
Yeah. I think that there's very few acting categories this year that I will speak on with confidence. I think that really Jonathan Groff, leading actor in a musical, might be the only thing that I will predict with confidence.
I feel the same. It's the lead actor and actress in a musical are really interesting this year because there are Kelly O'Hara and Brian Darcy James from a closed show and a divisive show. However, I've talked to people who hated that musical and still are voting for Kelly O'Hara in lead actress in a musical. And similarly, Brian Darcy James is someone who has a lot of love in this industry. And he's another person where I think there's certain figures who develop a career where people are kind of like just waiting for the right opportunity to give them a win. And he's one of those people. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like when we were younger, it was like all the men wanted to sound like Brian Darcy James, and like people idolized Brian Darcy James. And like,
yeah, well, he he had two roles that were very, very popular for our generation of musical theater male singers. One was Wild Party.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to sound like him as Burrs. And then, if it's not super niche, but kind of niche, Titanic, Barrett's song, and The Night Was Alive are two moments where it's like every tenor boy I know, they wanted that ping, they wanted that timbre, they wanted that straight tone into nice rich vibrato. And then, I mean, Sweet Smell of Success is a deep cut, but the number of boys who sing at the fountain at auditions, and it just sort of continues from there. He is beloved. He's been around forever. He was also in The Carousel I Love So Much, but this is his 5th nomination. I would love it if he won. He is my vote in that category, and Kelly will have to, box Marianne Plunkett for me to decide who wins that one, because Lord knows I love both of their performances this year. But I hear you. The thing that kind of gets my goat with the Jonathan Groff narrative, there's a lot I think that he has going for him to win that I agree with. He is the lead of the biggest musical hit of the season. Part of the narrative of what makes this production work is him, Lindsay, and Daniel. It's their chemistry.
Yep.
Also the narrative of, one of the hardest roles to crack in musical theater is Franklin Shepard, and no one has been able to do it. No one. And Jonathan Groff cracked it. Whether you agree with that narrative or not is your personal take, but that is the story that has been going since not just October, but since last year when it was off Broadway. So all that is in his favor. The part of his narrative that I don't like, because I think it applies more so to Brian Darcy James, is it's his time, he's overdue
narrative.
I'm like, Jonathan Groff isn't even 40 yet. This is his 4th Broadway show, 3rd nomination.
I think that's become a thing because, yes, he's had like fewer shows,
but he's been around for...
He has been around for a while, and many of those shows have become major zeitgeisty things, like Spring Awakening and Hamilton.
Sure.
And then he found like major success with Glee, with Frozen, so he's been a big musical theater figure and a big like Broadway ambassador to the world. So he feels like someone who will win a Tony one day. I think it will probably be this year.
Yeah. His footprint is large considering how few credits he actually has. My issue is the overdue, just because I don't think you can really apply that to someone like Jonathan, who also just like has had so many roses and so much acclaim already, and like never has, and hasn't had to want for people knowing his name for a while now. And Brian has been a consistently working actor who has just had to like claw and climb is a terrible way to describe it, because I don't think he's ambitious that way. I think he's just a genuinely talented, good person who like works hard all the time, has done a wild amount of projects, and I don't know, like it gave a beautiful performance.
He really Brian needs to be in a show that is open at the time of voting. I really think that's as simple as it comes down to. I feel like there is a world where I think a lot of people thought he was going to finally win for Shrek, and that was going to be his moment. And then the Billy Elliot thing happened. Yeah. And since then, I think all of his nominations, the shows have been closed by the time. Am I wrong? No?
I think this is the only one this is actually the only nomination. No, this and Into the Woods are the 2 nominations where it's been closed, because Sweet Smell of Success was open. I think it closed like the day after the Tonys. And then Shrek was open and Something Rotten was open. Something Rotten...
I totally forgot.
Something Rotten he could have won, but I was never in any doubt that it was Michael Cerveris. That was a situation where it was a Fun Home v. American in Paris. But again, that was the situation where anyone who was saying that the two were battling it out were people who were online talking about it. I was like, the moment you step in and watch Fun Home, you cannot tell me that that's not the best musical of the year.
Well, that was the case. This might prove why he will lose to Jonathan this year. But I think Fun Home was just like the show. It was the dominant show of the year, right? Where Something Rotten was like, this is really great and fun and we like it. But Fun Home became this overwhelming thing. I think this year, Merrily is this overwhelming thing.
1,000%.
Whereas people really are in awe of what he and Kelly did in Days of Wine and Roses. But I think the overwhelming thing is going to take the award. That said, I will contradict myself because I have Kelly out front to win for Days of Wine and Roses in my prediction right now, because I feel like that category is without a front runner. And it's really hard to win these lead musical acting categories if your show is closed. Really hard. Like for a lead actress in a musical, we had Stephanie J. Block, and then you have to go.
Cher show was still open when that happened. They closed.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about the wrong point. Matt.
Okay, sorry.
It's been a long period of time. I'm talking about is a non-best musical nominee.
Sure,
is what I'm thinking of.
Oh, yes.
So Stephanie J. Block was in the Cher show, which was not nominated for best musical, and before that, you'd have to go back to Heather Headley for Aida to have the same thing happen. Sorry, mixing up my stats in my head, but she just feels like the one that people are talking about.
Yeah,
in a way.
I think the only reason I'm gonna make a moment for Malaya and for Marianne just a bit to counter. Not that I disagree with you, but something that people should be prepared for. It does help that Malaya and Marianne are in shows that are still running,
sure,
that are doing pretty well right now, at least financially speaking. Marianne also has the narrative of having been around for a long time. Her first musical since her win in 87 is beautiful in the show. I'm not saying that I think she will win, but I think that there is a kernel there that could sprout for her. Malaya is the ingenue on the rise in Hell's Kitchen, and that whole show sort of revolves around her and her stamina. Where that will hurt her is the show is a big task for any actress, and Malaya's not trained. She's just raw, amazing talent. And from what I understand, that is already kind of starting to bite her in the ass in terms of attendance, which I do not shade people for attendance. You do what you need to do to be healthy and have the longevity in your career, but it's happening at a terrible time right now, which is she has to take care of number one, which sometimes means you have to miss, but that also means that there are just going to be a lot of voters who don't get to see your performance. And I don't think that a voter will be so pleased with your understudy in the show itself that they will be willing to vote for you because they know that the role is good.
Yeah, and they do try to reschedule everyone as much as possible,
yes.
But I mean, it's such a truncated period that sometimes you just can't reschedule. Yeah. I do think that category, Kelly, Malaya, and Marianne are kind of the three. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing Malaya has going for her is that she's sort of an apple in a bag of oranges, or an orange in a bag of apples, whichever version of that phrase you want to use, because she is the only one who's kind of like the newcomer in that category. And sometimes with that race, they do like to kind of crown a new person, the new star on the rise.
That category more than most
is
definitely has been known to crown the star on the rise.
Like Sutton Foster won for Millie, which was her debut. It's happened plenty of times.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't even have, like your first nomination. Yeah, Sutton Foster, Heather Headley, Jennifer Holliday. Mm-hmm. You can go into the 90s as well, I'm pretty sure. Donna Murphy, that was her first Tony win, and even though she wasn't 22, that was sort of a crowning of a new star situation.
Yeah,
Donna Murphy was Passion, not King and I, by the way.
Duh.
I just wanted to be sure, because there are certain things you can look at with narratives with certain categories, right? And leading actress in a musical, I feel like there are sort of three that you can go with. One is the crowning of the new star. One is the rewarding of the legend, and the third is the rewarding after a long string of build-up. So like Kelly and King and I, Cheetah and Kiss the Spider-Woman, Sutton and Millie. Those are sort of the three that go. And then the nuances of that come into play later. You can look at, with Heather and Aida, that was also just objectively the biggest hit of the year. And all the reviews, even the ones that didn't like the show, famously Ben Brantley hated Aida and basically spent half of his review going, the only reason to see this is Heather Headley, who, my God, slaps. And everyone just went, okay, great.
He said those words, too.
He said those words in big letters.
That was their pull quote.
That was their pull quote. And that there's something very exciting about that. And then there's something very exciting about, giving Cheetah her first Tony win for The Rink and then her second for Spider-Woman, or giving Audra her fifth for Porgy and Bess. And there's something to be said about giving Stephanie J. Block finally her due with Cher Show. And after that, you can see trends going different ways. So, what's so interesting this year for musicals in the featured category is, I've mentioned before, featured actor wins tend to go for the actor that more sets a vibe than has a showstopper, and then featured actress tends to go for those who have the showstopper more so than the vibe. And then the last 3 years, it's actually sort of been the inverse, with Matt Doyle with Company, and then with Alex Newell for Shucked, and then this year probably Daniel Radcliffe for Merrily We Roll Along. It's having the show-stopping number, and featured actress has been more about like having a mood the whole show.
I think having a showstopper is always, if not a showstopper, like a number, you have to have a moment, which is what I always talk about, is like a Tony moment, or like even with other things like the Oscar moment. What are they going to put on screen when they read your name, when they go through the list of nominees in the ceremony? Like, what is the thing that sticks out? Because stuff does fade from memory. Like, you won't be able to recall all the details of something, months, years down the road. But there are things that you can still think, holy shit, like that just knocked my socks off. Remember when Matt Doyle did, his crazy speed through of that song? Like, how did he do that? And those numbers definitely stay with you. Or like, remember when Jofina Kalukango got a standing ovation, during the show?
I keep thinking of like Ariel Stachel for Band's Visit, or even Christian Borle for Something Rotten, or going way back, Ron Rifkin for Cabaret. A lot of featured actor wins, or I'm trying to think of other ones. Boyd Gaines in Contact. It's performances where they may not have the show-stopping number, but they are there consistently throughout the night, and they keep reminding you how much you love them. And I think that is something that it can happen sometimes, more often with featured actor than actress. Actress tends to have more of the showstopper. It's just that the last 3 years, I felt that it's been kind of the reverse of that. Because even though Bonnie Milligan had 2 great numbers in Kimberly Akimbo, what really kind of sold her win was the vibe, the comedy she kept bringing to the show throughout.
Right.
And, Patty and Company obviously has Ladies Who Lunch, and that was a moment. But also we remember just the star quality and the legend status she just brought to the stage from her fucking entrance to the end.
And she even participated in desk choreography.
She sure did. She did musical chairs with the rest of them during side by side by side by side by side. Because there are some wins that people look back on and they go, oh, how did that happen? What makes this a Tony winning performance? And there are moments you can pinpoint, like you said, the Oscar moment, like Ruthie Ann Miles and King and I think you look at Something Wonderful and you go, that's what won it for her. Yeah. But I also think, similar to what you said about splitting the vote only really happens when there isn't a consensus. I think between Sidney Lucas and Judy Kuhn for Fun Home, no one could really figure out which one was the performance they liked more.
Well, yes. And that year, I think there was also a certain article that really swayed people away from a certain young Tony winner who was like, don't give a Tony to a young kid because it'll ruin their life like it did me and give me all sorts of problems. I
don't even remember that.
I do think Sidney Lucas would have pulled that out. Sorry, Sidney. But then I think people felt a certain way about it after something happened.
Possible. Well, then Sidney Lucas said, I'm going to be a doctor. Peace, bitches. Isn't she learning to be a doctor? Isn't that what's happening?
Is she?
I think so. I don't think she's in the biz anymore.
So she wanted to make real money. I understand.
Yeah. She worked when she wanted to work, and then she was like, deuces, I'm out. Which I respect. That girl knows what she wants. And you can tell, because that Tony performance is not the Tony performance of a dumb little child. That's the Tony performance of a grown-ass woman in the body of a child. Yeah, it's one of my favorite performances of all time. Give me another category. What's one that's on your mind?
What are we? What have we not discussed yet?
Everything.
Everything?
We haven't discussed a goddamn thing.
Okay, this is a category most people probably don't care about, but God damn it, I want Here Lies Love to win Best Scenic Design.
Yeah.
And so many people are not predicting that, and I'm like, did we not step into the disco? I unabashedly loved Here Lies Love. Mm-hmm. So I have no qualifications of my adoration for it. And I just can't, I feel like people are picking weird things for that category. The 7 nominee category.
It is Here Lies Love, Cabaret, Lemplica, Water for Elephants, Back to the Future, Hell's Kitchen. What's the 7th?
The Outsiders.
Oh, they got a set design nomination. Fascinating. Okay. I mean, of those 7, yeah, Here Lies Love is my vote.
It's sadly the only thing I'm predicting it for right now.
They're not getting anything
but
else.
I just know a lot of people who have Hell's Kitchen, and which is like no disrespect to Hell's Kitchen, but you have like, we have a disco on the Broadway theater. We have a DeLorean that's flying, and we have recreated theaters. Like, it's crazy.
We've got, well, if we're not going to give it to Here Lies Love, then you got Cabaret with the Kit Kat Club of, you know, totally redoing a theater. Just the sheer magnitude of that. And I don't love giving awards for most, not best. But
Well,
that
that's
is
what happens.
That's what happens. Every now and then with set design, they'll give it to one that isn't most. You know, with the Bob Crowley Once design over pretty much everything else that season. I also remember the year of Piazza, how thrown a lot of people were that they swept the design categories because everyone thought Chitty Chitty Bang Bang had set in the bag. And then there was another show with costumes that everyone thought, I think people thought like Spamalot was going to win costumes. And then it went to Piazza. And there were a lot of folks who were baffled because they were like, I didn't see an ounce of glitter on Light in the Piazza. There was no flying car in Piazza. And everyone that came to its defense, me included, was like, if you were in that theater, you get why it won. Like, that design was beautiful and perfect for what that show was trying to be. And it wasn't overwhelming you with money. It was just perfectly curated. And I don't know if there's a set design in a musical this year outside of Here Lies Love that I feel that way about. I think that that Cabaret's design is perhaps the most impressive thing about that production. And
I'm wondering how much, this is the interesting thing about Cabaret at the Kit Kat Club, is that how much are people going to consider the pre-show elements when they're thinking about these awards, right? Because when you actually just sit and watch the show, most of it's just taking place on this small stage in the semi-round, and there's a platform in the center that raises and lowers. But like the design of what actually is on the physical stage is not the selling point. It's like everything else around it is the selling point.
It's the auditorium and the lobby and all of that. And I think that gets taken into account. You kind of has to. It's all part of the experience. Listen, is Cabaret my vote for set design? No. But that is what I'm currently predicting. I mean, I just don't love how that floor, when it raises up like a wedding cake, has all that glitter around it, because I said this in my rankings when Bebe Neuwirth was doing What Would You Do, which I thought she did quite well. When they raised the platforms for her on that big money note, I was like, can you just let the woman sell it? Do we need the wedding cake right now in the third act of this Nazi musical? Do we need it? No. It's no bueno. Get it out of here. I don't want it in my room. But that's how I feel. I feel like with design, there's so many things that I feel like could be so obvious in retrospect, and we're just not seeing it right now. Like Suffs with costume design, I feel like that's just so obvious of a winner. Lighting design, I don't know. Part of me is like, Outsider is such an obvious winner, but like, what about Illinois?
I have The Outsiders, but Illinois could take that. I think actually all the lighting design nominees are really beautiful work, which makes it a little hard.
It's a solid category, I gotta say.
I feel like The Outsiders has the most like obvious lighting design, which is that's sometimes what wins.
Because it also it makes you wonder if whichever show does end up winning musical, what are going to be the other wins that it gets, unless they pull a Two Gentlemen of Verona, Strange Loop, and like they just win musical and one other thing. Which can happen.
And I think that could be like, if Suffs is our winner this year, I think it will be that year, because I could see Suffs winning book and score, which I would argue are the two most important ones that you want to win. It may just win that, and that's it. Because I feel like we haven't talked about director yet, but I feel like Maria Friedman is out front. I actually think Danya Taymor has such a cool concept for The Outsiders, and I've said this a lot of times, but like when you watch that show, it is just so clearly a director's show. Like you can see her imprint all over it. The staging is just so fascinating, and her storytelling is fascinating to me. But I feel like Maria Friedman has been the biggest story, and that's the thing is, Merrily is such a huge force that it's going to eat up a lot of the musical awards, I think. And so whatever wins Best Musical might have a fairly small tally.
Yeah, I think this is a year which has happened in the past where Revival will walk away with more wins than the actual musical winner. But what I mean is, you know, all 5 Best Musical nominees have a chance to get like 3 or 4 wins if certain things line up in a certain way. Like, let's say that Illinois does win musical, they could sweep with their nominations for orchestrations, sound, or it's orchestrations, lighting, and choreography. Like, that could just be, because that has also happened. I love bringing this story up. It's one of my favorite things of all time. The year that My Beloved Carousel was nominated in 1994, it was considered that they underperformed with nominations because they only got 5, whereas She Loves Me got 9, and I think Damn Yankees also got 5. And then Carousel just proceeded to win every single one of its awards, and ended up having the most wins of the night. Whereas, you know, Passion and Beauty and the Beast also like had 10, and there was like, oh no, sorry, we were nominated for 5, won all 5, sorry, flops. I'm like, what if Illinois pulls that? Like, only 4, but they win all 4. I'm not saying that will happen, but as you said earlier, there's no consensus about anything. So with that in mind, like, anything can happen. I wonder, like, can Hell's Kitchen win if they lose book and director and choreography though?
Yeah, Hell's Kitchen would need, because I don't have Hell's Kitchen out front for book, and so like that's a huge one to miss. So then it really needs, I feel, either choreography or director, and I don't know. I mean, Michael Greif could get a lot of support. He did direct 3 freaking musicals this season, and he's never won.
It's also a bad look to have 5 nominees and the one who wins is the only man.
Yeah. And I feel like that's not something people want to say, but that is like, it has to be in people's minds.
And it would be one thing if it was Alex Timbers for Here Lies Love. I feel like that would be a winner if Alex Timbers were nominated.
Been nominated.
Well, yes, I'm agreeing with you. But saying, let's say Alex Timbers was nominated and like pulled a surprise win for Here Lies Love, I don't think there's a narrative where people would be upset about it. It would be considered a creative win that people were happy with. But Michael Greif, I think, even if you like Hell's Kitchen, he's objectively done the least of the 5 in that category, in my I said objectively, and then I said in my opinion. So
objectively, in my opinion, because my opinion is the one that counts.
we have Maria Friedman, who the narrative is she fixed Merrily. Don't agree that she fixed it, but it is the best it's worked probably in a long time, if ever.
And it's the biggest hit of the season,
and the biggest musical hit of the season for sure. Danya Tamor, is it Danya or Danya? Danya?
I think it's Danya, but
Danya Tamor.
Someone
who has been sort of on the periphery of Broadway for a minute, is this sort of young, I don't want to say up and comer because she's been established for a while, but with Broadway, this is very much like she's here, you know, she's made an impression. The show is selling really well. As you said, it is a directory musical. I think she's done a really beautiful job. Jessica Stone, while I have issues with Water for Elephants, I have said before, I think that this is sort of the second of her 1, 2, 3 punch as a director, because she did Kimberly Akimbo, where she's like, I can totally helm a well-written, well-acted musical, set the tone, make sure everyone's in the same show. Maybe my staging isn't like Alex Timbers level, but like everything is compact. And then her second show is, oh, you want imaginative staging?
Circus.
Yeah.
Bam.
Watch me go, bitch. And then her third musical is going to be like, watch me combine both. So it's the level up, but I think a lot of what makes that production work is what she does with it, less so than the actual writing. She covers a lot of the flaws of it. The fact that there's still flaws showing is another story. And then
maybe Jessica Stone's third one will be Flies! Exclamation point.
The one woman show is Celia Keenan Bolger. And then Lee Zimmerman, you know, I think that what she did in that show is sort of similar to what Jessica Stone did with Kimberly Akimbo. You know, she helmed this smaller show with a strong cast, and really she and Shayna combined made it much more improved from off-Broadway to Broadway. That's the narrative with Suffs, is everyone goes, if you saw it downtown, you won't believe how much better it got. And a lot of the thanks goes to Shayna because she wrote the fucker, but also like Lee is her collaborator. Mm-hmm. And if Nathan Lane taught us anything on social media this week, collaboration is very important.
It's key.
It's key. No one is an island. I don't care what anyone says. No one person thought of everything for a show. It's all collaborative. So if Suffs is improved, it's because Shayna and Lee held hand in hand and said, keep marching.
Oh.
Yeah. And Hillary Clinton said, I'll throw $2 into that.
I think it was more than 2, though.
7.
Okay.
$7. Well, I'll put in 50.
She's the real brains.
She is. Okay. Let's take one more break.
Okay.
Billy, I beg to differ with you. How do you mean? You're the top.
Yeah.
And we back. Let's throw some love to plays again. I was really happy with plays. So what I wanted to do, though, which we didn't really do, we just talked because that's how this podcast works. Let's find a category. And then I'm not going to say bullshit. I want you to talk to me about your thought process through the nominees and how you would make your prediction.
For how they're going to win?
What would make you predict them winning? Yeah.
Well, since we haven't discussed it yet, I have to find it on my handy dandy phone because I'm a visual person and I don't remember things unless I can see them. But let's talk about director of a play.
Great.
Since we haven't been there yet.
Yes. Our nominees are?
They are Daniel Auken for Stereophonic, Kenny Leon, Pearly Victorious, Anne Kaufman, Mary Jane, Lila Neugebauer for Appropriate, and Whitney White for Jaja's African Hair Braiding.
That is a really good lineup.
It's a great lineup.
I love that lineup.
It's a really fucking fantastic lineup. I was before nominations came out, I had both a hunch that Anne Kaufman and Whitney White were going to get in, despite no one predicting them to get in. And so I didn't pull the trigger on it because I couldn't figure out which of them was going to like unseat one of the front runners. And it was both of them. Because Rupert Gould and David Cromer both did not make the cut. And I was
or Sam Gold.
Right. I said Rupert Gould. Sam Gold is what...
well, I actually had Rupert Gould in there over David Cromer at first because while I appreciated Patriots, didn't love it, I was like, that is a lot of play and a lot of directing.
It's a lot of directing.
Yeah.
So that I did think
it's a lot of British directing, and they tend to like that.
So I think this is an amazing lineup. At the start of the season, I would have told you that Lila would win this hands down for Appropriate. But then Stereophonic has happened. And I feel like I've solidified that those two are kind of the front runners. The way I've done that is saying, well, let's look at, if we take into account recency bias, those two shows are still running. Whereas something like Jaja's, even though I loved Whitney White's work there, and Kenny Leon for Pearly Victorious, they are no longer running. Though we should remember directors sometimes like Christopher Ashley won for Come From Away, and it was a total surprise.
Sure was.
The only win for that show. So there can be surprises in the directing categories. And especially on the plays side, I think closed plays have a better chance at winning Tonys than closed musicals do.
Yes.
Overall, there are, of course, exceptions to every rule. Stats are only made to be broken.
Exactly. Trends are made to be disturbed.
But it's a chance, but it's still something that hurts it. And then Mary Jane's direction, I feel like people are mostly gaga about the actors in Mary Jane.
Yeah.
That seems to be what everyone comes away with.
Which also, to be fair, I bring this up a lot. That is thanks to directing and fact that if you don't understand why Anne Kaufman's direction of Mary Jane with those actors is so incredible, I urge you to go see Uncle Vanya, where no one's in the same play.
Well, I understand why Mary Jane's
I know,
directing
Samuel, but I'm telling the listeners.
The general public.
Yes. People, and you can be a great director and sometimes still have a play where all of your actors are in different things. And everyone in Vanya is an incredible actor, but that was a case where it was all these different islands kind of circling around each other, no one culminating to one full country. And in Mary Jane, it is one big old tract of land that everyone is on together thanks to fearless leader Anne Kaufman. But I agree with you. I don't think she's a front runner.
It's not the most directing.
Yes.
Which is something that we often coin a lot when doing it. Like, it's because it's about what sticks out to you the most in your mind, maybe weeks, months after you've seen something. The things that are the most of anything, the biggest, are the things that stand out, that survive the test of time a little bit more. And Mary Jane has a lot of like gorgeous, beautiful, subtle moments. Even the big moment with a set piece, which I won't spoil if people haven't seen it, because you should go see it. It's beautiful. Even though it feels big for that show, it is still like quiet in the way that it gives you that gut punch.
Yeah.
So I've kind of landed, barring any surprise, on Daniel Auken and Lila, but Lila is going for the classic family drama, big shouty outbursts, big acting, ends with a bang with that epilogue and all the changes going through that plantation house. So it is definitely, she checks off like a million boxes for director.
I do think that ending is what's going to win them set design of a play.
Sure.
In my humble
I
opinion.
do. I agree with you. And even, well, no, that's a lie. I was going to say another design, but that's a lie. Probably set design is it. I was just thinking of the other nominees and said, never mind. Yeah. But Stereophonic, I think, has become such a juggernaut. People cannot stop talking about it. It really overperformed in nominations. And I think the real magic trick of his directing of it is that it could be so mundane, and really in many cases they are talking about mundane things or doing mundane things. Like Chris Stack adjusts his drum set for I don't know like
10 minutes
fucking minutes or something.
That whole sequence, oh my god.
But it's amazing. I was so captivated for 3 hours and 15 minutes. Never once felt bored. When it ended, I was like, let's get this fucker around again. I want to go through it and see what I didn't pick up on the first time. And not only did he make mundane conversations interesting, and these quiet moments interesting and captivating, but the acting feels like you've just kind of dropped in and are observing a hidden fly on the wall. Everyone feels really natural. No one is pushing. They're just playing real humans, which sometimes is a tall order for certain productions. But everyone is just such a, every person on the stage.
And when
that's hard to pull off, I think.
There are also productions where even with the acclaim, even with the momentum, you can clock a weak spot, whether it's someone in the cast or whatever. And there are a couple of shows this year that I wouldn't necessarily say juggernauts, but successful shows that have those moments where we can identify that's not as up to par as the rest of it. And it's been discussed openly with a lot of people this year. And with Stereophonic, there's no one in that cast that is a weak spot in any way. It is an airtight ensemble. Same thing I felt about Jaja's African hair braiding. I was everyone on that stage is fucking killing it. And, the design is incredible. The songs all are good. And also...
no crumbs.
They left no crumbs, and they left no
crumbs in acting and no crumbs in drugs on stage.
Truly. I mean...
That whole bag gone.
I was saying, who needs a bagel? Who needs a bagel for breakfast when you can have cocaine? Who needs a steak for dinner when you can have cocaine? And who needs bread or cake when you can have cocaine? That's what Stereophonic says. It is their breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
That's
baby.
What I learned from the play. What was your takeaway?
I learned that Don't Look Now is a lot deeper of a movie than anyone ever realized.
Oh my god, truly. I wanted to go watch it.
Well, you know what? I know I mentioned this either on the pod or I brought it up in my video review of Stereophonic. That section where Juliana Canfield is talking about Don't Look Now, and everyone's like, why is that in there? This thing is so long. Cut it. And I'm like, first of all, it's so cool to watch artists talk about art that isn't theirs. To watch someone praise the work of someone else in a medium that is not their own. It shows you that character's intelligence, her insight, and her appreciation of something that made an impact on her, and ultimately speaks to the higher level of why do we do this at all, if not to make something that makes this kind of impression on somebody.
Right.
And
it goes back to the fact that everything feels so natural, because it's the why of why is she saying this, because real people in real life don't say well, I'm feeling a certain type of way and I have to do a monologue about it. We talk about things that connect with us. It's a really beautiful way, smart way of doing that on stage.
Yeah, because art is ultimately how we all connect and communicate with each other. And I don't mean art, but anything that we consume, any entertainment that we consume is how we learn more about the world, ourselves, each other, and how, think about your friendships and the movies or TV shows or books or musicals that you connect on, that you love about. I mean, the gay community has both united and turned against each other every season of Drag Race based off of who won and who won any lip sync any night. And while we all get mad at each other, we do kind of unite every Friday night to see like, okay, who are we going to fight about this week? And that is art in its own way. It's not, Picasso. It's not Don't Look Now, but
it's Sasha Velour.
It's Sasha Velour and the Rose Petals. That became a moment, a moment that we all can now identify and becomes short term for vocabulary. That is sort of what Stereophonic is tapping into in its own way. And I don't think that that's either one of us reaching very far, because I know I'm not terribly intelligent. So for me to come to that conclusion, I feel like it's just there.
We just have BFAs. We're not intelligent at all. We don't do.
Oh, I know I'm not intelligent because I had a teacher who would tell me what to think about all the shows out there. He would say, "No, that writer's not a good writer. You're mistaken. No, that's not a good song. Never sing that again."
Oh, see, I pushed back. Like when teachers tried to say, "You need to read David Mamet," I'd be like, "Why the fuck do I need to do that?"
Samuel, do you really think I didn't push back?
No, I know you did.
I was the only one who did. They'd be like, "Why are you singing Jason Robert Brown?" I'm like, "Because everyone in New York is, and if I don't know how to sing Jason Robert Brown, I'm never going to be able to get in any room, idiot." He's like, "Well, why not sing more Maltby and Shire?" I'm like, "I love Maltby and Shire. Who's singing that for Newsies? Scat." You don't go into Telsey and they go, "All right, Kinky Boots, what are you going to sing for us?" I'm like, "I'm going to sing I Don't Remember Christmas from Starting Here, Starting Now. Thank you ever so much."
God, the amount of obscure songs I had in my book at the end of college was nuts.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're just searching for things. And it's like, this was a terrible choice.
Milk was a bad choice.
Milk was a bad choice.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you when I think it was junior year when we had to do scene study in musical theater, and I was assigned Death of a Salesman, Biff and Happy, not to stretch my talents, but because my teacher was like, "I give up on you. I'm going to give you something you'll never, ever play, ever. Have fun with the next year and a half, fag." He didn't say fag, but it was implied.
It's always implied.
And I said, "Thanks. Enjoy your third divorce." Anywho.
Snaps.
I'm pretty sure I did say that to his face at some point. I feel like, okay, we've been dancing around it, but we're in the stereophonic of it all. So let's talk about best score.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is an interesting one.
Oh, Jesus. Well, I had to eat my hat because in my final predictions video I did for Goldderby, I was like, Stereophonic's not going to get into best score because, it's not fully underscored. It's just a few songs. Some songs you don't hear in full, but the songs are amazing. And I feel like this is a weird year where, again, there is not a huge consensus on the musicals. Mm-hmm. And we're in a category where there are two closed musicals, Here Lies Love and Days of Wine and Roses, for best score. And that leaves the only new musicals there as Suffs and The Outsiders. And so, there's a little bit more of a path, I think, for Stereophonic this time, just because of the sheer popularity of it. And even though it isn't scored the whole time, it's just these songs. They're fucking killer songs.
They're fantastic.
They're just incredible.
Well, in addition to them being objectively phenomenal bangers, it is so intelligently made because not every song, but some songs are written by different members of the band, and you can tell.
Yep.
Like they just have it
done what?
Yes, like the sound of it sounds like the band, and that's due to the orchestrations, which was a phenomenal nomination.
I'm predicting it for orchestrations.
I think that could happen.
I've moved it up to second place for score because I was like, well, I was really wrong with nominations.
Yeah.
So let me reconsider, and I just can't stop hearing people talk about it. And they've also released their album, which was very smart, at the right time. So that's all going for it. But the orchestration's the moment where they reorchestrate Bright on stage and you see it's a character moment between Tom Basinka and Sarah Pigeon when he's like, "I want you to play the piano because I want it to sound shitty." So that throws her into a certain state, and you watch all of the characters, how they fall into that moment and how the song totally changes from what was already good into something totally next level. And I was like, well, that is the power of orchestrations.
Well,
like,
and-
it's literally displaying to you why they're important on stage.
And the album has 3 versions of Bright, all, those 2, and then there's a third one in there as well, like an up-tempo version of Bright as well. And yeah, it's so smart to have it on the album in all those iterations to show you why that orchestrations nomination was deserved. And yeah, I mean, a closed show can win score if there is enough consensus around it, like a Bridges in Madison County. But the thing about Bridges was that what everyone agreed on was that score is good. And this might be like Jason Robert Brown's most romantic score, and is up there with his best in the past. No one I've spoken to has said that Days of Wine and Roses even touches Piazza or Floyd Collins in terms of the Gettle canon. There are people who've appreciated the score. I don't think that score is a total bust. There are things in there I like. I've been very vocal that I think the first 15 minutes of Days of Wine and Roses is a musical that works. And then it's after that where I'm like, now we're getting more conceptual of, we've been doing rough drafts in our living rooms separately from each other, and then we put it on stage. They're not bad, but they're not integrated, and they're not fleshed out enough. And the fact that I feel like the fact that show didn't get a book nomination, I think, is telling of how people might feel about that material in general.
It's a very, like, sophisticated is the word that people keep using for it. And it's really, which I feel like is kind of a silly word, but...
Well, it's condescending.
I think it's also about, like, the subject matter and how he is trying to display the character's alcoholism and internal, like, awful battle through the music is, on the one hand, really cool. On another hand, it sometimes makes the music kind of inaccessible in a way. And when you have a mass of people voting on something, like 850 so people voting, it becomes about, like, how do you get the most amount of people to sit down and see this thing and understand it and get it. And so when something is divisive, or when something feels like you have to work at it, or is maybe even an uncomfortable subject matter, which the show is, it becomes really hard to kind of form a consensus of, we want this one as the winner. Like, that's why I never predicted it for Best Musical, is like, you have to have passion behind it. And it's hard to say, not only do I appreciate it, like, I appreciate the musical, but I love this musical that made me depressed about alcoholism. And it's like, it's a hard sell.
Yeah. Again, I think every musical this season has its passionate fan base, none of them large enough. And I feel like there's no greater representation of that than, say, Lempicka, which has, by the time we record this, it has a week left of its run. Yeah. And even with the fervor of its fan base, they still can't sell out the theater in the last 2 weeks of the run. Definitely not at regular price. I think their last performance is. But the volume with which they speak of the show online would make you think that this has 100,000 fans rallying behind it, that it's misunderstood, and that it will clean up at the Tonys with its 3 nominations. And this is not the case. And I think that's true of Days of Wine and Roses. I think that's true of The Notebook and Hell's Kitchen and Here Lies Love and everything. Everything has its fan base, and they're all loud. So it's difficult to know which one actually has the largest amount of love, because everyone's just shouting at the same pitch.
And sometimes, most of the time, the people shouting are not the people voting. So it just creates a false
narrative
of, like, the Twitter fans and Instagram fans, like, are not the people who are deciding this. And that's kind of the whole thing about figuring out and making predictions of who wins an award, is that, again, you're going back to, like, what does this specific group of people think? Because that specific group of people are not these loud fan stands online.
Interestingly enough, the nominee in score that I think has the fewest caveats going for it is Suffs, and yet I can't put all of my energy behind predicting it. I do think it's between Suffs and Stereophonic, but, like, Stereophonic, yes, every song is great, and it's so intelligently crafted, but it is for a play where it's up against 4 other musicals. So that's a big, detriment. Outsiders, I feel like the score is something that people are fine with, but aren't in love with. It serves the story, but it's not amazing on its own. Here Lies Love is a really good score, but it's a genre of music that I'm pretty sure a lot of voters don't take seriously. And, Days of Wine and Roses, very complex, very distancing score, and then Seth's and Stereophonic are sort of top two. But I don't know. I just don't know, Sam.
Well, it's also like, which songs are you still like having in your head without having to like look at anything? What are you still singing?
Everyone's singing Masquerade. That is what is gonna, and people want them to sing Masquerade on the Tonys. And like that's it is the heat of Stereophonic that I feel like is pushing it over the edge. In addition to the fact that it is so good and so well done, that momentum really can get you way more wins than you ever thought you could get if it's the right kind of momentum.
And pricing is so hard right now because let me tell you, none of these shows have advance sales. Like
no, none.
Since the pandemic, ticket buying has just totally flipped. No one is buying in advance anymore. It is like impossible. I don't envy anyone who's trying to launch a new musical because you will not have advance sales. You're going to stare down the calendar of these empty houses, and and the flip side is, if you start offering things like Lempicka did, like when you offer cheap tickets or comp tickets, your sales drop off a cliff. It is really hard to recover from it because especially New York and tri-state audiences just go, well, I can get that for cheap, so I don't ever need to spend $100 on this ticket. It's really hard to like get yourself back into that perception.
Yeah. The best you could do is to do cheap tickets for the very beginning of your run to get word of mouth going, and then up it as it continues. So it's like, buy your tickets now while they're this price, and because it's only going to get up from here. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's half and half, like a Shucked, where it started well and then kind of fell off. But I think that wouldn't have happened if Shucked had won Best Musical. But I also don't think Shucked was ever going to win Best Musical. But you know what I mean. If they had won, I think that pricing strategy would have worked out brilliantly for them.
Totally.
Because it worked really well for the first 6 months. But yeah, are there any other categories we haven't really talked about? We talked about both directors. We talked about musical, play, revivals. I mean, Merrily will win revival now.
Yeah.
That's just going to happen. There was a moment when I thought maybe Cabaret, before Cabaret had started a single performance. And ultimately it did overperform with nominations this year. But I also think that's a case where it gets 9 and we'll be fortunate if it wins 2 or 3.
I think it might not win any.
It
might be one of those.
It might not win any
record
either.
breaker this year of like most nominations without a win.
Most of this year, sure.
This year specifically.
Yeah, that's possible. It's very possible.
Because what is it going to win?
I think
like BB maybe.
I think BB has a shot. I think they've got a shot for set and costumes, and that's kind of it. Unless Eddie pulls off a surprise somehow. But of all the performances in that show that are the most divided, I think his is the most divisive. People are kind of warming up to Gail these days. I still haven't totally been sold on her performance, but lately people have been more positive on her than him. Eddie is the one that, like, you either love what he's doing or you absolutely hate what he's doing.
Yeah, I think I have them winning costumes, and that's it. Because featured actress, like, I just feel
it's probably Lindsay.
I think it's Lindsay, and if anyone's going to take it from her, I think it might be Keisha.
Yeah, I do think it's among BB, Keisha, and Lindsay. I would be into the idea of BB winning. The problem is that, again, I think this production is so not controversial. And I don't want to say divisive again, but like it's so polarizing, this production of Cabaret. And the one thing that people have been overall agreed on is that BB and Steven walk away with the show, where Lindsay and Daniel make big impressions in a production that more people are liking, it's easier for them to win. Mm-hmm. So, it's who's to say, but I do think that we're going to probably see Merrily with revival, director, actor, then featured actress and featured actor, and we'll call it a day. I was sad they didn't get a costume nomination. I liked the costumes in that show.
For Merrily?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when you think of that show, though, I don't necessarily think of all the design elements first and foremost. It's mostly like it's performance.
Yeah. Well, not the set, but I think the costumes do the heavy lifting of getting us in the right time period for every time we move backwards. And I would have liked them to get nominated for costumes over Hell's Kitchen, but Malaya's jersey
It's colorful. It's 90s. 90s are in right now. As I see when I try to go buy clothes, and I'm like, where the hell do we buy clothes now? I already did the 90s. Hashtag old. Hashtag outing myself as very old.
I was a toddler of the 90s, so I didn't do any of the fashion trends. I wore little sweaters, not crew cut sweaters, but what's it? Is crew cut a thing you can refer to as like
the? Crew cut is just like the normal
the neck,
round,
right?
Yeah,
crew cut sweaters. Then sorry, I don't know the terms.
But I think Hell's Kitchen could win costumes just because it is colorful and like literally fashion right now. Go into H&M and it is all like beige, taupe, earth tones.
I think Hell's Kitchen,
there's colorful 90s clothes on stage.
Hell's Kitchen getting the nomination for costumes is a really huge get because nominators have always been so snobby towards modern dress in shows. They almost never nominate it. They never award it. But we see this with Hell's Kitchen. We see it with Appropriate. We even see it with Jaja's African hair braiding, although that is a more outlandish modern day design. And I would love it if they won, but I think it's probably going to be Enemy of the People. Or Stereophonic, which is another.
I have Jaja's winning.
I would love it. I would love it if Jaja's won.
Count it out.
I think Jaja's, Enemy of the People, and Stereophonic are three amazing costume designs for very different reasons and very different eras. And I would love it if that happened. But it's just so difficult for modern dress to win because nominators don't know how to make sense of it, of like what makes it good design. There are all these video essays regarding that with movies and Oscars, how like the Oscars never do that, and why Devil Wears Prada getting nominated was like such a huge deal. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's tricky. Again, people go for most often, not necessarily best.
That's why we have different, for the sound design categories and orchestrations, they're decided on by a smaller subset of voters who have declared themselves, we know what we're talking about, because so many voters actively don't know what they're talking about, don't know how to judge sound design.
Which makes it even more egregious that Sweeney won. But that happened a year ago. I have to. The show is closed now. I need to let it go.
Were you aggrieved?
I was very aggrieved. I've seen that production twice. I saw it right after they opened in the center orchestra, and I felt like the giant orchestra was a mile away. And then I saw it a year into the run. Joe Locke had come in as Tobias. Aaron did not show up yet as Sweeney. It was Nick Christopher. We were in the mezzanine, my friend and I, and the orchestra felt a lot closer, but behind a wall of velvet. And I still was angry about that sound design.
Really? Oh, yeah. I didn't have that experience. I just remember I didn't predict it literally because so many people complained about not having the factory whistle in it. And I was like, they've removed the factory whistle. They won't win sound design. And then that was wrong.
Well, that's why Tommy Kail didn't get a director nomination. But we don't punish the sound designers for doing what the director asked. So, Lism gay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think of any other major design categories we haven't talked about. We did costumes. I mean, lighting for play. I'm going to give that one to Stereophonic. I'm also going to give Stereophonic sound, which is, if ever there was something that was dread to win design.
For lighting of a play, I think Appropriate, thanks to that epilogue.
That could happen.
There's a lot of, day to night work with the lighting in that play just in general, which often gets a win. That's like why Long Day's Journey into Night won, and I was the only person on Goldderby who predicted it. Thank you.
You can't see it, but he just tossed his hair. So cute.
But I feel like Appropriate is a similar kind of thing in a world where I feel like the most obvious lighting of that group is Grey House, which is very, very far away at this point.
Oh yeah.
So, and then the epilogue comes in and you're like, bam, effects.
It's Appropriate, Enemy of the People,
Stereophonic, Grey House, and Prayer for the French Republic.
Oh, Prayer. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to put Prayer at the bottom, Grey House at number 4, because it's better lighting, but it is close and far away. And then I'll say Enemy of the People, Appropriate, and Stereophonic. I think those top two definitely will battle out. The thing is, with Stereophonic, it also has a similar vibe of Appropriate, where the lighting is very subtle until it's not. And some people might just sort of do Stereophonic down the ballot, or they might do Appropriate down the ballot. There's also the flashes of light they do every time they open up the photo album.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I didn't.
See, I was thinking I have Enemy of the People above Stereophonic for lighting because they like have that whole moment where they open the play with all the lighting of the lamps, and I think there's just
It's a beautifully designed show.
Yeah.
I'm listen, if Enemy of the People wins anything, I'm not going to complain because I loved that production. But also, I also wouldn't be mad if Appropriate won sound design purely for the gay porn playing off of Sarah Paulson's son's phone. Because that is such a that's a specific sound design.
What was the research for that sound design?
They called me up and they said, Matt, what's the last thing you watched? And I said, the last thing I'm willing to tell you? This. And they go, great. And they go, well, it sounds super obvious to the audience that it's gay porn. And I said, it'll sound obvious to 95% of your audience. Because I was talking to someone the other day who saw Appropriate and they didn't realize it was gay porn. They thought it was like he was watching a wrestling match or something.
Oh my God. Because
it was
wrestling match?
Or like, yeah, because they were like, it just sounded like men cursing each other. It was like they were cursing into each other, not at each other.
Some people are so cute with their naivete.
Yeah. Oh, sweetie, honey boo boo child. No, no, sweetie, they're not punching each other. They're punching into each other.
It's a different kind of wrestling.
It's young boys playing leapfrog.
I have young boys on my. I have girls on mine, don't you?
It's been a long time since you've seen a girl. That's
Don't
a boy.
get me started with the birdcage because I will sit here and quote the whole movie from start to finish for you.
What the hell are you giving? What the hell are Pirin tablets?
I don't want to do it because
just say this one thing.
They'll cancel me for the accent.
You don't have. Hank Azaria doesn't have an accent. It's fine. It's his character. Just say the line. You don't have to do the accent.
It is an aspirin with the A and the S scraped off.
My God, what a brilliant idea.
I know.
There we go. Thank you so much, babe. Thank you for indulging me. Has he been tested? Oh, Kevin. Yes, and so have I. Ah! Diane Weiss in that movie. Somebody's got to like me best.
She is really the unsung hero of.
She's the unsung hero in everything she fucking does.
That whole movie.
That movie is just everyone is. No one came to play in that movie. Everyone came to murder.
Right?
It's incredible.
Young Callista Flockhart,
fresh off of doing Glass Menagerie on Broadway with Jessica Tandy, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Or is it Judith Ivey? Judith Ivey. Ugh. Yeah, it's so good. Stephen Sondheim wrote a song for that movie. It's a dumb song, but intentionally so. Come little dream before you're gone, let's get it on. Sondheim wrote that lyric. You can find it in Finishing the Hat. It's so good. I love that. Everything about that movie is perfect.
Blowing bubbles with his gum.
He can't do that while I'm singing. So Birdcage isn't nominated for anything this Tony season. But
it should be every year. We should see what it could beat or not.
Maybe I'll make one of the presenters for my fake Tony categories online someone from Birdcage.
Oh my God.
Yeah, maybe it's the I See What You're Doing and TBH Bravo Performance of the Year presented by Diane Weiss and Callista Flockhart from the Birdcage. So Sam, when people are going ahead and making their predictions this year, any advice for them as they try to win their Tony pools?
You should go to goldderby.com and copy me because that's what everyone does, I guess. But no, I think you should kind of remove your own likes. If you're actually looking at what do I want to, I want to get the best score and I want to, beat all my friends, then you should kind of remove your own biases. It can be hard to do when you really love something, but it's not kind of what the masses of this Tony voting pool are going for, or the industry is going for, and just think objectively about it rather than emotionally about it. And I kind of think that's a good thing for the nominees to think about too, because there's a lot, there's so many, I think, people, because again, the Tony have this kind of advertising power, and there are a lot of people in the industry, I think, who desperately want a nomination or a win because it'll they think, oh, this will get my next project funded, or I'll have so much more choice or opportunity after this. But there's so many crazy variables that go into getting a win. We've talked about, all the narratives. Is your show open or closed? Is it overall popular with nominators? There's so many stars that have to align, and this season you can point to so many people who didn't get in, who we love, that just just go with the flow, enjoy the night, and take the emotion out of it as much as you can.
Yeah. There's an old interview I remember watching. It was when Gavin Creel was nominated for Hair, and that was the year of the Billy Elliots. And he talked about how somebody had said to him, "Oh, we're rooting for you." And he said, "I appreciated the sentiment, but this is a weird kind of race." And he goes, "This I can't actually run. I can't run faster than the Billy Elliots." Right. He goes, "It's just a matter of doing what we do and seeing who likes it." He goes, "So the pressure's kind of off. It would be nice to win, but the pressure's off. And I'm happy that there are people who like what I'm doing, but it's you can't really root for anyone. Like I hope it's you. It's like I can't do it any better than I'm doing. You gotta hope that out of 800, 650 of them like you, or at the very least 410."
That's so. I got to interview Betsy Adom this season, and I asked her because she has been in two plays that have won Best Play, even though she wasn't nominated before. This is her first year individually, but I was like, "What's that like after your show wins Best Play and has such a huge moment at the Tonys? Then what happens when you go back to your theater?" And she's like, "You just still have to do the show. Mm-hmm. We're still just telling the story." And I think that's a real testament to the people in this business, because it's not like film and TV where you've already done the thing and you're just like, I get to have this really cool moment all about me and just like live on that for forever. Like you still have to go to work every day and like find a way to make that interesting every day.
What changes is the audience expectation changes, and that can be for the better, it can be for the worse. Sometimes you win and people show up and go, "All right, prove it to me." But more often than not, after a win, they go in excited. They tend to go in with their arms crossed when you are a high-priced hot ticket, and they're like, "Well, I paid $500. Be amazing." And it's like, "Oh God, I don't know about that." But if you win, then they go, "Oh, I'm seeing the winner. That's fun. Sure. That's exciting." Yeah. I mean, I should say, most audiences had no idea who Jaquina was prior to Paradise Square, and then after her win, every night she would come on stage to massive entrance applause, for the 5 more nights that they had. But
oh no,
it's fine. She got paid for 4 out of the 5. What? Garth doesn't pay people. We all know this.
Wah, wah.
No, sorry. So, Sam, this has been lovely.
It has been lovely, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in and giving us your expertise. Where can people find you if you want them to find you?
Oh, well, you can head to Goldderby, and I am listed there. And I'm on Instagram at Sam Eckmann, ECKMANN. She's a double N.
And that's all she wrote. If you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram only at Matt Koplik, usual spelling. If you like the podcast, you can give us a nice 5-star rating or 5-star review. I had recently given the prompt, I should say, to the listeners because I did a Q&A for the Tony reactions, and every now and then when I do a Q&A, somebody asks about a video of me singing Life of the Party from the Gay Men's Cabaret that I did in February. And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's like 3 people who want this, and they keep asking, but it feels like more. And so I said, okay, guys, I would like to get a certain number of ratings by the end of May. And we were at 198 a week and a half ago when I made this prompt. I said, if we can get to 215 by the end of May, I will post it. Which I thought was a high bar because I don't get... I average like 6 ratings a month, maybe 1 review a month or 2 reviews a month. But we are now currently at 213, and we've got 18 days to go, I'm pretty sure. We did get knocked down 1 point from 4.9 to 4.8, but I think we can get back up there to 4.9 with like 2 more 5-star reviews, 5-star ratings. I should have been specific. Don't just rate it. Give us 5 stars. But we do.
If you hate us, get the fuck out.
Get the fuck out. People can rate whatever they want to rate. I find that when people are more overwhelmed with hatred for me, it's rarely hatred for the podcast. Their hatred tends to be for the length, which, whatever. It's the length that it is. I've leaned into that. People like it, people don't. But more often, the bad feedback I get is, I don't like the host. I don't like his attitude. I don't like his voice. I don't like his speech pattern. I don't like anything about him.
Change everything about yourself and come back to me.
Who are you, my friend group? But we do have 2 new reviews, and I want to read them real fast to get them their due. So, cue the Light in the Piazza overture. 5 stars. Great podcast, exclamation point. It's rare to find someone who consistently has great taste and knows what they're talking about, but Matt Koplik is one of the few. That is in print. That means it's fact. I have great taste, Sam. Next up, 5 stars. It's giving Virgo. I would listen to Matt discuss just about anything, but especially Broadway. He is so thoughtful and incredibly knowledgeable. I really appreciate how he does not sugarcoat his more critical opinions, despite clearly being connected to many in the biz. It also never comes off as condescending, which can often be the case for those who tend toward criticism. I'm sorry, Mother Play. Honestly, it's giving Virgo energy, and I'm so here for it. If Matt's big 3 don't include a Virgo placement, I'll gag. Well, you know, I only really like making people gag in certain rooms, so I hate to say this, but I don't have Virgo in any of my 3. I am an Aries moon, an Aries sun, and a Cancer rising.
I don't know all my things, but I know I'm an Aries in most of them. So
well, the only reason I know this is because people would ask my sign, and I know I'm an Aries, and they would go, that's so crazy for you, including this one fucking gopher who thought she knew me from 5 seconds. She was like, you're a Cancer, right? And for a second I was like, you're calling me Cancer? She's like, no, you're a Cancer. It's like, oh. I said, no, I'm an Aries. She goes, oh, it's maybe like a Cancer rising or something. And I was like, well, I don't know. And it turns out I am a Cancer rising. So there you go, gopher, you were right. But I was just tired of people asking me, so I looked it up so I know forever. No Virgo, I'm so sorry. Nor Gemini or Leo or Taurus. 2 Arieses and a Cancers.
For a second when you read that review, I thought it was just It's Giving Virgo.
That
was the whole review, which I really would have appreciated.
No, someone wrote a review that was like, the title said Tunnel of Love, and the review itself was saying, Sideshow episode is awesome. And I went, that's a review. Another person saying, do an episode on Hades Town. I said, maybe. So, no, people have been writing really awesome reviews. Someone wrote a really lengthy review last week that I did not know how to take because it was so well written and a little religious-y that I just read it and I went, I don't think I can live up to anything you just wrote. There's nothing about me that is worthy of these words. So thank you for the words, and I'm gonna post it on my wall and try to live by it every day. But I'm just a hateful dum-dum who's told that he has connections to the biz. I'm glad that I gaslit all of my listeners into thinking that.
She has fans. Even hateful dum-dums have fans.
It's true. I know I said I was going to the Water for Elephants listening party, but am I? I know I said that Celia Keenan-Bolger and I had a moment, but did we? We didn't. I had a moment with Janine Story, though. That was fun.
What we will have is
Flies?
Is Flies.
Flies, exclamation point, yes. Musical. Produced by Diane Wiest.
I'm going home to write it right now.
It's going to be produced by Dan Wiest and Calista Flockhart. Hank Azaria will do the costumes. Christine Baranski will do the choreography. And who's going to direct it? Oh, Jessica Stone is going to direct it.
Jessica Stone will direct.
Yes. And it's all the leftover costumes from Harmony.
And it'll feature a cameo from Andrew Keenan-Bolger.
Yes. And Beth Level will play the conch. Because she's so good at princess tracks now.
Oh my God. Can you imagine her, like, Beth, create a conch noise? She would do it.
Yeah, she would absolutely do it. You only get to speak when you're holding Beth Level. If you don't get that reference, guys, read Lord of the Flies. It's very violent and very good. Sam, we close out every episode with a Broadway diva. Who would you like to close out your episode?
I'm going to go with my favorite South Florida diva, SJB, Miss Stephanie J. Block.
Okay. So I guess we're going to have to do Stephanie J. Block's version of Glitter and Be Gay.
Oh my God. I've never wanted anything more in my life. Thank you.
Someone said SJB recently, and I don't remember what we picked. The only thing I remember was Boy From Oz song. What's it called? We were talking about this earlier. What's her song from Boy From Oz?
Oh.
Loves to Hear the Music.
Yeah.
Which I remember Ben Brantley wrote in his review. She does this like she's having a breakdown, and they said, yes, and?
That's her specialty.
Exactly. That Stephanie J. Block loves a breakdown, and I'm here for it. Why hasn't she ever played Diana at Next to Normal?
Oh, she would be fantastic. I would pay so much money to see her as Diana.
But only if she also plays Gabe. Since Gabe is part of her psyche, she's got to be playing both parts.
She could do it.
She could.
She has the range.
She would do it. Not only could she would. If you're like, challenge SJB, she's like, done.
I really like the two divas that live at the top for me are SJB and Audra. And when Stephanie won her Tony, Audra was presenting that year. And at my Tony party, I knew Stephanie was going to win. And when Audra like walked up to present, it like hit me what was going to happen. And I was like, oh my God, this moment was made for me. And everyone looked at me and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm a gay theater person and this is what I do.
I'm so happy you got that moment. I'm so happy you had that.
I had it. It was only for me.
I don't even remember where I was for that Tony ceremony. I just remember watching the Hadestown performance and the Tootsie performance, and I went, one of these things is not like the other. And I enjoyed Tootsie, but I was very disappointed in their performance that night. But we move on. Sam, we're going to close out with SJB. That's what we're going to do. Stephanie J. Block. I'll think of the song. Yes. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Check us back next week. And I believe our guest next week is going to be friend of the pod, Rob W. Schneider, the host of Broadway Bound, which you should all be listening to if you haven't already. And that's it for now. Take it away, Steffi JB. Bye.
Pa said, look out for men who think. You'll be more certain with men who drink. So out I went to become a wife and found the real love of my life. Oh, he was a soldier, a fine Highland son. He told me about all the battles he'd won.